"We're almost at the LZ," the chopper pilot said to us. "Roger that," Captain Reynolds responded and turned to the rest of us. "Safety off and get ready to go." All 6 of us readied our weapons and waited for the chopper to land. When it did, we got out to the gray cloudy skies above and a cacophony of military orders being shouted all around us. I observed the gigantic wall which cordoned off the infected city. It stood there insurmountably, not letting anyone in and, more importantly, preventing anyone from getting out. "Captain Reynolds, follow me," one of the soldiers said, and we went after him to the giant metallic entrance. A high-ranking elderly officer was shouting at a timid soldier in front of the gate. "Colonel, they're here." The soldier who escorted us saluted the colonel, grabbing his attention. He looked like he hadn't slept in days due to the dark bags under his eyes. The officer nodded at the soldier, dismissing him. He gave Reynolds a stern look. "You're here early. Were you briefed?" he asked with a scruffy voice. "Just the basics," Reynolds responded calmly. "Our soldiers are to rescue Dr. Kidman, secure his research, and to escort him out of the city." The general nodded and took us to a tent which had a map of the city on the table in the middle. "Kidman was last located at the pharmaceutical company here." He pointed to a location on the map. "Reports indicate the place was overrun a few days ago when a couple of civilians went inside, but the horde has dispersed since then. You may run into a few stragglers though. If Kidman is dead, secure his research and get out." "What's the report on survivors?" Reynolds inquired. "That's not your concern. Chances are most survivors are already dead and those who aren't are infected. If you encounter any survivors and deem them a threat to the mission, use lethal force. If they are not in the vicinity to become a direct threat, ignore them and move on. Rescuing Dr. Kidman and securing his data is the priority." "With all due respect, Colonel, but we don't answer to you," I interjected, somewhat annoyed. "We're not military, and the reason we were sent here in the first place was to fix what your guys couldn't." He jerked his head to me, but seemed unfazed by my statement. "That's enough, Pierce." The captain shot me a stern glance and then turned back to the colonel. "What kind of behavior do the people infected exhibit?" "You ever seen a zombie movie?" the colonel asked, his gaze still fixated on me before looking back at Reynolds. "Rabid behavior," Bracken, the explosive expert, asked. The colonel nodded. "Well, they basically tend to attack violently, regardless of the disadvantage they might be in. They mostly come in groups though, so be careful to not draw too much attention since they can swarm you. Another thing you need to keep in mind is they tend to show intelligent behavior, so they might try to act human sometimes before actually engaging. That's why we can't risk rescuing survivors." He looked back at me. "Understood. Anything else we should know?" Reynolds asked. "That's it. We'll keep in touch via radio. Once you find the dock, radio HQ for evac." "Oh, come on already, we're wasting time," Daniels, the loudmouth of the team, shouted. "Daylight's burning. Alpha, move out." Reynolds ordered and the colonel gestured to the gate guards to let us through. One of the 2 soldiers swiped a card on a reader next to the gate and it started opening slowly, as if to give us enough time to change our minds before it was too late. As soon as it opened by a crack, I was able to see a street littered with mutilated bodies and bloodstains on the ground. "Road ahead's infested with those freaks, so you'll have to go around to reach the dock's location," one of the soldiers said. Reynolds nodded and walked past the threshold. The rest of us followed. As soon as all 6 of us were inside, the gate closed behind us. The noises of the military behind us got muffled, but was still audible, giving a false sense of security. None of us looked back, although I'm sure everyone on the team contemplated whether we had just sealed our own fates. "Weapons ready and keep quiet. That means you, Daniels," Reynolds said. Whatever, Daniels mumbled under his breath. The dock shouldn't be far away from here. We can take this way, Burton, the team scout, said. As we rounded the corner, all noises from outside the city died down, leaving us with deafening silence. The number of corpses on the streets decreased in comparison to the front of the gate, but it was still a gruesome sight for eyes. Geez, look at this mess, Daniel said quietly. This parasite the government's been experimenting on is quite something, huh? Well, let's not stick around to end up like them, I responded, shooting a glance at a young woman who had her entrails hanging out of her belly. Let's find the doc and get out. What's so special about this doctor? Jackson, the team's quietest member, asked. He's got a cure for all this, Reynolds said. If we find him, some of these people can still be saved. And in case the infection spreads, he'll be able to stop it. Wait, you hear that? Lincoln interrupted and the whole team stopped. There was a distant, high-pitched scream, followed by regurgitating sounds. It came from over there. Lincoln pointed to the east. Let's turn here just to be sure. Reynolds pointed to the adjacent street and we followed him. We walked for a few minutes in silence, listening as these screams intermittently permeated the air all around us, always distant but close enough to put us on edge. Hey, you guys see that? Daniels looked across the street into an antique shop with a broken glass. There was a little girl standing in the shop, staring at us, motionless. We gotta help her, he said, striding towards the girl, ignoring the captain's orders to get back. We quickly followed, trying to stop him, but he was already inside the shop, kneeling in front of the little girl. She stared at him with a blank expression, not responding to whatever he was trying to communicate with her. The rest of us pointed our guns at her as a precaution. Whoa, put the guns down. He turned to us, raising his hand. Daniels, move away from her, Reynolds ordered. She's just a little girl, Captain. She's not gonna do anything to... Before he could finish the sentence, the little girl's blank expression turned into one of pure anger as she lunged at Daniels, knocking him on his back. There were a few seconds of wrestling, Daniels holding her at bay while she flailed her arms and legs, spitting and screaming. Burton used the butt of his weapon to knock the girl out, instantly muting her screams. Jesus! Daniels shoved her off himself and stood up, backing away. Burton approached the girl and leaned in to make sure that she was unconscious. He then turned back to Daniels and said, What were you thinking? This is exactly what HQ told us to avoid, you moron. Everyone stared at Daniels, who held his head down. In retrospect, we should have been a lot more cautious because the next moment, there was a loud thumping sound, and when we all looked at Burton, he had a large glass shard sticking out of his neck. He grabbed at the shard and pulled it out, making blood spurt out of his neck and then fell down, knocking over the few remaining antiques from the shelf. The little girl stood over his body, staring down at him with amusement. Reynolds fired a few shots at the girl, instantly making her fall limply, and then he ran into Burton, who was coughing up blood and gasping for air. Burton, stay with me, he shouted in panic, pressing down on his bleeding neck. After just 1 second, his gloves were soaked in Burton's blood, and the pool that formed around him on the floor kept growing bigger. Burton stopped coughing and went completely still, his eyes still open in shock. The captain stood there motionless for a while and then stood up and strode to Daniels, grabbing him by the collar and pushing him against the wall. The rest of us were about to intervene when the radio had crackled to life, and a voice resounded on the other end. Alpha, they're onto you. You have a horde inbound from the north. Just then, the air was filled with the most horrifying, blood-curdling screams that I had ever heard before. Let's move, Reynolds shouted as these sounds of violent screams that were distant just before drew closer by the second. We ran outside, leaving Burton's body behind, and as soon as we set foot on the street again, the screams became even louder and more rabid, A few people sprinted in our direction, flailing their arms aggressively. They had bloodshot eyes and the same look of pure hatred which the little girl had. Some of them had blood on their clothes, and I was certain that it wasn't their own. We fired a few shots and stopped them in their tracks, but just then a big group of them appeared right around the corner. There must have been at least 100 of them, all sprinting at us with such visible hate in their eyes that I knew they couldn't wait to get their hands on us to rip us apart. "Move your butts, Alpha," Reynolds shouted between shots, and we started to retreat down the street. More of the freaks intercepted our path, so we turned left into the alley and ran for it, shooting the occasional zombie that would be on our way. The horde was right on our heels, which I heard from the snarling and shrieking behind. Some of them were shouting something, but I couldn't make out what they were saying. "There, go!" Bracken pointed to a school at the end of the street, and we started sprinting towards it in unison. The doors were open and we jumped inside. I turned around and fired a few shots at the horde, making a few of them tumble down and the ones behind them stumble over the dead ones and lose balance. "Close the door, now!" I shouted while the others shut the door, holding it as firmly as they could with their backs. Daniels tossed a metal pipe to them and they barred the door with it, backing away just in time for the horde behind us to bump into the door, making it rattle violently. For a second, I thought that it would give way at the hinges, so I held my gun at the ready, as did the others. But after a few failed attempts at breaking in, the violent crashing turned to simple banging on the door, after which that stopped completely as well, and we were left with only the sound of our heavy breathing. We breathed a sigh of relief, but only for a second. The sound of something loud crashing to the ground came from the floor above, followed by a set of frantic footsteps echoing from one end to the other and then stopping entirely. "All right, here's what we do," Reynolds said, pointing his gun at the ominously dark hallway in front of us. "We go to the back entrance of the school. It'll lead us right where we're supposed to go. From there, it's a straight shot to the dock." We nodded in agreement and started moving through the school very slowly. Since most of the windows were barricaded in a hurry, it was pretty dark even with the light coming in through the cracks, and we had to turn our lights on to navigate the hallway. It quickly became apparent that the school teachers and students had tried to hide inside, but didn't make it. The hallway and classrooms had dozens of corpses in them, teenage students and school staff alike, all killed brutally, some gone beyond recognition. As we passed by one of the classrooms, we saw through the open door a student inside, sitting at his desk, clutching patches of the hair on his head so tightly it looked like he would rip them off, rocking back and forth and mumbling something. We snuck past him as quietly as we could, keeping an eye on him along the way. "Dang it, the hallway's blocked," Reynolds remarked when we reached a bunch of chairs and tables stacked up highly, blocking us from going through. The exit was right there beyond the barricade too, double doors barred with a metal pipe, just like we did at the entrance. "There's a staircase on the other side," Bracken pointed beyond the barricade. "We can probably use the stairs from the second floor to reach the exit." We agreed and turned back to look for the stairs. When we passed by the classroom from earlier, the student was gone. I didn't want to peek inside and risk being seen, so we just decided to use extra caution. After a couple of grueling minutes of walking through the dark, corpse-infested corridors, we reached the stairwell which led to the second floor. Just as we got to the bottom of the stairs, there was a sound of something heavy being dragged across the ground and the floor above, followed by a barely audible grunt. "Eyes open," Reynolds ordered and took point, climbing the stairs slowly. The second floor was even darker than the first one, with no visible light coming from any cracks between barricaded windows. There were almost no corpses there either, just a few bloodstains here and there, knocked over lockers, etc. I wasn't sure if I should be alarmed or relieved at the lack of dead bodies. As we proceeded, another set of footsteps resounded somewhere in the distance behind us. We quickly turned around, but nobody was there. Then another one from the direction that we were just facing before. We turned just in time for our beams of flashlights to catch a figure disappear behind the corner. We held our breaths, trying to detect the faintest noise. Reynolds gestured for me to watch the Team 6, so I moved to the back and pointed the gun into the corridor behind us. As we started moving slowly, I walked backwards while keeping an eye on anything that could surprise us. Slowly but steadily, the staircase that we had ascended upon was moving further out of my view, and we were close to the other set of stairs which would take us down to the exit. And then I heard a voice in the distance. It sounded like somebody pleading or crying. I stopped to focus on it. It wasn't far away, coming maybe from the classroom on the right. Looking back now, I know that I should have ignored it, but my conscience couldn't shake the feeling that it might be someone innocent in distress. I slowly inched closer, trying to decipher what the sound was. I opened the classroom door and it became a lot clearer then. It was definitely a female voice pleading, but also faintly banging and scratching on the door at the back of the classroom. I couldn't make out any words aside from "please" though. I felt myself moving inevitably towards the noise, each step making the voice clearer. The woman kept repeating phrases like, "Please, I'm locked in here and I need help." As I reached the front of the door, in addition to the meager banging and scratching that I could see the door rattling slightly, I stood there for what felt like an eternity before finally grabbing the doorknob, ever so slowly. As soon as I did, all sounds from the other end had stopped, as did the rattling itself. I braced myself to unlock the door, and then I felt a hand on my shoulder. I turned around quickly, pointing my gun at Lincoln, who simply shook his head and said, "Don't." I looked back at the door and then nodded to Lincoln. As we started towards the exit, the pleading and banging had started again, this time more hysterical than the last time. We ignored it and went to catch up with the team. We saw them at the end of the hallway, pointing their guns around the corner and not moving, and as Lincoln and I turned there, we froze as well. In the hallway in front of the stairs stood dozens of infected people. They all faced in our direction motionless, but had their heads down and eyes closed. It looks like they were sleeping while standing. It was surreal, as if somebody had just unplugged their batteries. They didn't even react to the flashlight beams. Reynolds slowly approached the one in front and bent down, cautiously shining the light directly into his face. "Captain, what are you doing?" Bracken asked. "They're unresponsive. I think we can get past them," Reynolds whispered, straightening his back and lowering his gun. "You're willing to bet your life on it," Bracken replied. "Come on, follow me." Reynolds ignored him and squeezed his way between the freaks. The rest of us shot each other a suspicious glance and then followed the captain. We moved slowly between the freaks, doing our best not to touch them, carefully observing each one that we passed by. After a minute or so of grueling maneuvering, not knowing if any of them would attack us at any moment, we were in the clear and the staircase was in front of us. "Holy God," Lincoln said, coming out last from between them. "That was intense." He was barely able to finish that sentence before the next thing that happened. All freaks in the hallway suddenly lifted their heads in unison. "Lincoln, run!" I shouted and we opened fire, but it was too late. Lincoln was swarmed by them and they were biting, scratching, and mauling him. We tried to get them off him, but they were coming at us as well. Lincoln's screams were drowned out by the shrieks of those lunatics pretty soon, and we found ourselves running down the stairs with rabid voices at our heels once again. When we reached the first floor, Bracken removed the pipe from the door and kicked it open, allowing us to get inside the school gym. There was a door at the far end and we ran to it, our footsteps echoing throughout the whole room and these screams following closely behind. "We can't let them follow us," Reynolds shouted and faced the incoming horde. He started to unload into those things and we followed his lead, mowing them down one after the other. There were dozens of them, but we had managed to put enough distance between ourselves and them to shoot them all down before they got close. Even when only a few of them remained, they ran right at us, never retreating. The gym that was pristine and untarnished when we had walked in a minute ago was now littered with countless dead zombies. Reynolds reloaded his gun, visibly tired and furious. Beads of sweat were hanging from his temples, and he stared at the pile of dead bodies in disgust. Dang it, poor Lincoln. Daniel shook his head. Let's move on, the captain coldly said and turned to the door. The dock's close now. The air outside felt welcoming, despite the smell of rot and death in it. We barred the school door behind us to prevent any stragglers from ambushing us. When we returned to the street, the coast seemed clear. There were dead people everywhere, crashed signs, cars, and broken objects, but nothing was moving. Alpha, give me a sit rep. The radio voice resounded. HQ, this is Captain Reynolds. We lost 2 men, but we're close to the target location. Copy that. From what we can tell here, nothing's moving near the pharma company, but you can expect some resistance inside. Roger that. All right, people, let's move it. Reynolds ordered, stepping up his pace. When we rounded the corner, Reynolds pointed to a big building near the intersection. He said, That's our target. We need to be quiet, so get your knives out, and in case we're overwhelmed, open fire. The building's entrance was completely obliterated, and glass shards which were once part of the entrance door littered the floor of both the interior and exterior of the company. As soon as we stepped on the glass and made a crunching sound, a very short but violent gasp was heard from the inside. Then frantic, uneven footsteps that got louder by the second until one lady showed up in front of us. She had blood around her mouth and bloodshot eyes. She stared at us, snarling and hissing. Her head twitched, and I wondered if the person she was before was still aware of anything, or the parasite took over control completely. Reynolds stepped forward, clutching the handle of his knife firmly. Come on, gorgeous, he taunted the lady. That was more than enough for her. She screamed and ran to the captain, but he stopped her by grabbing her by the neck. She flowed her arms, trying to reach him, still having a bloodthirsty expression on her face. Reynolds held her like that for a few seconds and then, with a swift move, stuck the knife into the woman's eye. She immediately went limp and fell to the floor. The rest of us secured all other entrances and waited to see if the woman's screams attracted more of them. No one came, so we were safe for the time being. Reynolds picked up his knife and used the radio. HQ, we're in. Dr. Kidman and his research should be in the lab on the 4th floor. HQ responded. We proceeded through the ransacked facility. It was surprisingly empty. A few dead scientists here and there, garbage bins and vending machines knocked over, but nothing else in particular. When we finally reached the 4th floor, we followed the signs to the lab section. The laboratory had glass walls, which I assumed were heavy-duty and not easily breakable. The inside of the lab itself looked like a mess, with various broken vials and spilled liquids on the floor. From what I could tell, no one was inside. There was a vending machine on the inside, leaning against the door as a barricade. Anybody see anything? Reynolds asked. Nothing, I said. The doc could have left by now, or died. Let's check the lab, Daniels. Reynolds gestured to the team member. Daniels slid the door aside with his free hand and carefully pushed the vending machine to stand upwards. Weapons out, Reynolds commanded, sheathing his knife. We did so and went inside, scanning the room. Dr. Kidman, Reynolds called out with his gun raised. We're here to rescue you. Are you here? A few seconds of pause ensued. Then out of a corner, a person in a lab coat jumped out, rushing with scissors in hands at Reynolds, who was turned away. Just as he was about to stab the captain, I opened fire on the attacker, knocking him backwards on the floor. Hold your fire, Reynolds shouted. He looked at the attacker, who was holding his bleeding wound, writhing on the floor. God dang it, Pierce, we needed him alive. Reynolds got in my face. Nice seeing you again, Captain. The attacker spoke in pain, scooting away and leaning against the nearby wall. The government sent you to salvage what they messed up. Captain, you know him? I asked. Reynolds turned to the doc. Kidman, I was hoping you would be more reasonable. Give us what we came for and we'll provide you with first aid. The doctor chuckled, but his expression quickly turned into agony. He said, You know as well as me I'm a dead man, and there's no way that I'm going to cooperate with those people. I won't let them have the sample or my research. Captain, what is he talking about? Bracken asked. The captain didn't respond. To this, the doctor let out a short laughter and said, Oh, you poor idiots, they didn't even tell you. Tell us what? I asked impatiently. You're not here to rescue me or to find a cure, he responded. Your real objective was to secure a sample of the infection and steal my research so that the government can continue to weaponize the parasite. Shut up, Reynolds yelled at Kidman. The doctor continued. But you're too late. I already destroyed everything, research, samples, it's all gone. You destroyed them? Reynolds was furious. The doc chuckled painfully again. Look around you, this is the future that the government wants for the entire nation. They're not interested in a cure, and I mean, why would they be? The whole purpose of the parasite is to control the people. It's too valuable for them to just let it go. Is this true, Captain? I asked. Reynolds kept quiet, to which the doctor laughed again. He started wheezing loudly. Just like me, you were used, he said before closing his eyes and sliding sideways on the wall, going completely limp. Captain, I called out again. We have our orders, Reynolds responded. What the government does with this is for the greater good of the nation. Greater good? Have you not seen the thousands of innocent dead people by now? Women, children. How is this for the greater good, Captain? I won't argue with you, Pierce. You can follow your orders or you can die here. Your choice. By this moment, white-hot rage was boiling inside me and I simply pointed my gun at the captain, which he did right back at me. I can't allow you to do this, Captain, I said, my hand shaking. I'm warning you, Pierce, stand down, he said, looking impatient, but in control of his emotions. We had a stare-off for what felt like hours. I expected the captain to simply shoot me since to him the mission always came first. I had completely even forgotten about my teammates. And then another gun was pointed to the side of Reynolds' head. Drop the weapon, Captain, Bracken said. Daniels went to the other side and pointed his own weapon. Reynolds eyed each of us as if he was weighing his options. Don't do this, Captain, I said when I saw the indecisiveness in his eyes. He stared at me, his weapon gripped harder than before, veins bulging on his temple. And then he lowered the gun, allowing Bracken to confiscate it. Just then the radio crackled to life. Alpha, what's going on over there? Reynolds stared at me coldly and said, If we don't secure the sample, there's no evac. Let's find a sample and go home. Alpha, respond, HQ said again. I ripped the radio away from Reynolds and threw it on the ground, stomping on it. You idiot, Reynolds shook his head. Face the wall over there, I gestured with my gun. Are you joking? Face the wall, I shouted. Reynolds obeyed, placing his hands on the opposite wall. Daniels, cuff him, I said. Daniels cuffed Reynolds to the radiator and stepped back. You're making a big mistake. The captain jerked his cuffed hand effortlessly, making a clanking metallic sound. There's no way out of this city, you idiots. When we're out, we'll radio HQ to rescue you, I said. We'll leave you with enough food and water until then. We dragged the vending machine close enough to him so that he could reach in it with his free hand. The remaining three of us turned around, ready to leave. Don't leave me here, Reynolds scoffed. I'll find you and kill you all. You hear me, I'll kill you. We ignored him and waltzed out of the building while his cursing and yelling followed behind. When we were finally out, rain had started. So what the heck do we do now? Bracken asked, stepping into the rain and turning to us. There's gotta be a way out somewhere, a place they're not observing. I responded, not believing my own words. Just then, a voice came over the radio, but it wasn't HQ. This is Adrian Taylor's. I'm in the clock tower and I have survivors with me. We'll be leaving the city in 4 hours. If anyone's alive out there, get to the tower ASAP. Repeat, we'll be leaving in a few hours. After that, you're on your own. We listened to the voice over the radio carefully, hanging on to every word. Well, this couldn't have come at a better time. Daniels grinned. Hold on, it could be a trap. Bracken shook his head. Well, trap or not, we really have no choice right now. I told them and leaned into my radio. Adrian, do you copy? No response. Adrian, do you copy? I repeated. Maybe it's a one-way radio, Daniel shrugged. Well, either way, let's go and check it out, I said. It's either that or we die in the city. HQ won't help us. The drizzle outside quickly turned into a downpour, which worked to our advantage since we could move faster without alerting the infected to our presence. The clock tower was on the other side of town, so we had a long way to go. Night fell soon and the rain showed no signs of subsiding, but we pushed on. There were a few stragglers here and there, but they were either wandering the streets aimlessly or just standing and twitching. We were able to get past them without being noticed, so the only problem we encountered up until then was when we reached the main street leading to the clock tower. We were on an elevation above the street and were able to overlook our path to the tower. The clock tower rose high from the distance. Its giant handle stopped on 9 hours and 25 minutes. The road between us and the tower was littered with hundreds of zombies just standing there, with no particular reason. The radio called out again. This is Adrian. We're at the clock tower and we'll be leaving in 3 hours. If anybody's alive out there, try to make it here before then. After that, you're on your own. Adrian, do you copy? I tried again, but no response. We need to go around these guys, Daniel said. What's the best route to take? Let's slide down this hill and then we can take a detour, Bracken responded. I observed the slope in front of us. It looked a little risky but doable. The bottom had a muddy pond, so the landing looked safe. I nodded. Without any hesitation, Bracken stood up and approached the muddy slope. With careful footing, he started to slide down. Daniels and I watched as Bracken balanced himself perfectly, all the way down until reaching the bottom, falling waist deep into the pond of mud. He then gestured for us to follow. You go first, I told Daniels, and he slid down a little less graciously than Bracken, but still made it to the bottom safely. It was then my turn. I took position on the slippery slope and slid down, gaining speed as I went further down, and then I fell into the muddy pond, managing not to dive under. Alright, let's. I started and then stopped. I felt something grip my boot in the pond, and before I even had a chance to shake it off, a figure jumped out of the mud and tackled me, causing the both of us to fall into the mud. Before we dove under, I saw a hairless face with an open mouth and bloodshot eyes trying to produce a dry screech. I felt the dirty water filling my mouth and bony fingers being wrapped around my throat. And then just as quickly as the fingers grabbed me, they went loose and I jolted up, spitting mud. I wiped my eyes just in time to see Bracken pulling his knife out of the skull of the assailant. Move, Pierce. He yanked me up, wiping the mud off his own face. Daniels was already across the street behind a house, out of sight of the horde and waving for us to get our butts there right away. We looked at the horde and saw one zombie staring suspiciously in our direction, so we bolted out of the mud and joined Daniels. The zombie approached the pond of mud that we were in just before, sniffed, hissed, looked around, and then turned and left. I spit the remaining mud which was in my mouth and cursed. That was too close. Bracken scoffed. We took a detour which was relatively safe, save from a handful of freaks here and there which we managed to get by. In about 20 minutes or so, we had finally emerged from an alleyway and reached the clock tower. There was a massive wooden door at the bottom with a couple of zombies walking around. The three of us split up and took care of the zombies with knives before they could hear or see us. I knocked on the door loudly. No response. I knocked again. "Hey, we heard your broadcast," Daniel shouted. "We're just looking for a way out." We waited some more with only the sound of rain accompanying us, and then the sound of the door unlocking came from the other side. The door opened a crack and a teenager stood there, timidly observing us behind the door. "Hey," I said softly, "we're not gonna hurt you. We heard your broadcast and we're looking for a way out." He didn't respond, but instead looked at my teammates. "We're not government," I said, suddenly realizing armed as soldiers didn't really make a good first impression. The boy hesitated for a few seconds before swinging the door wide open and motioning for us with his head to come inside. All right, get on." He shut the door, muffling the rain outside. The place inside was ransacked and these salvaged items were used for a barricade on the windows. Inside were two more teenagers, a boy and a girl. "I'm Adrian," the boy who let us in introduced himself. "This is Clara and Tom. Can you put those guns down? You're making me real nervous." "Adrian, we heard you over the radio. You said that you were leaving the city. You know the borders are guarded, right?" Bracken said. "We do," Clara nodded. "Adrian has a friend who's going to pick us up with a chopper." "A chopper?" Daniels frowned. "That's a rich friend you got there." "I guess you could say that," Adrian said. "We need to be on the rooftop of a nearby building soon. Having connections is pretty useful, huh?" "The city's surrounded by military. The chopper won't be able to enter the city, not to mention getting out." I shook my head. "My guy is the military. Relax, it's all good. We'll be out of here in no time." Adrian smiled. I sighed, suspicious of the whole situation. How is it that a guy who's no older than 18 had connections with somebody who pilots a chopper in the army and is able to get them out of a quarantine zone? But I decided to go along since we had no other choice right now. "So, how long until your guy gets here?" Bracken sent on a nearby bench. "He'll radio us when he's close. Shouldn't be long now," Adrian responded. We spent the next couple of hours waiting, talking to each other and trying to make the time go by faster. I contemplated everything we had been through so far and wondered what Captain Reynolds was doing at this moment, and if he was still handcuffed in the pharma company. And then suddenly a voice came over the radio, jolting me back to reality. "Adrian, you there?" the voice said. Adrian rushed to the radio and picked it up. "Yeah, still here. You coming?" "Yeah, I'll be there in a few. Get to the landing zone." "Let's go." I stood up and went to the door. "You guys stay behind us," Daniel said to the teens. I opened the door and we went out. The rain almost had completely stopped. "Over there," Tom pointed to a building across the street. We climbed the fire escape and made it to the rooftop, and soon we heard the whirring of a helicopter in the distance. In a matter of minutes, the bird was above us and it slowly landed on the building, making all papers and other trash on the roof scatter. The pilot turned off the engine and the chopper doors opened. Then all of a sudden, a group of soldiers emerged, pointing their guns at us. "Drop your weapons on the ground now." They shouted commands at us, and before we could explain anything, we were forced onto our knees and our guns were confiscated. "So you actually got him, Adrian. Nice work." One of the soldiers chuckled and I was confused. "What's going on, Adrian?" I asked, but the soldier shut me up. Just then, another soldier stepped out of the chopper, stretching his back and cracking his neck. It was Captain Reynolds. "Captain!" Daniels tried to stand up but was knocked back down by a soldier. "Surprise," he said, focusing on me. "Told you that I would find you." Adrian interjected. Listen, this little family reunion is nice, but let's talk business. We upheld our end of the deal, now it's your turn to pay up. Yeah, sure, men, give them the reward, Reynolds responded. The soldiers raised their guns and opened fire. There was a loud scream and a please God no before it was silence forever. Brats. Reynolds shook his head and continued. Thought you would just leave me behind and abandon the mission, huh? Well, no matter, we managed to secure one sample the doc didn't destroy, so the mission is accomplished. But we can't just let you go home, no. Not after what you pulled at the pharma company. So now let's see which one of you pricks will be lucky. If it were up to me, I would kill you all right here, but HQ has other plans. He pulled out a device that looked like a scanner and pointed it at me, pressing a button on it. It started producing a synchronized beeping sound. This device will tell us if any of you are infected. He held the device trained on me for what seemed like forever, and my heart felt like it would jump out of my chest in anticipation of what was going to happen. And then the scanner started to beep violently, and a red light on the front started glowing. Reynolds lowered it and smiled. Well then, he said, looks like we got ourselves an infected one. I stared at the captain in disbelief. I'm infected how? How did I contract the parasite? No, that can't be right, I shook my head. I'm not infected. Well, let's check it again then. Reynolds pointed the scanning device at me again and pressed the button. The beeping started, and after just a few seconds, the red light turned on and the beeping became even more violent. Nope, still infected. Reynolds shrugged. He approached Bracken and scanned him, and just like with me, the device turned red. Come on, Bracken said. Reynolds approached Daniels and scanned him as well. After a few seconds of beeping, the light turned green and the beeping stopped. Well, lucky you, Daniels. You never did like to get your hands dirty now, did you? Daniels sighed in relief and then glanced at us with a look of guilt on his face. Before I could fully comprehend what he was thinking, Reynolds pulled his gun out and blew Daniels' brains out. No! Bracken tried to stand up but was knocked down and beaten by the soldiers. Reynolds knelt down in front of me. You guys are the lucky ones. You get to go home alive. He stood up and gave a command to one of the soldiers, entering the helicopter. One of the armed men approached me and swung his gun. Everything went black after that. After God knows how long, I woke up in a brightly lit room. I adjusted to the light and observed my surroundings. I was in white clothes that resembled that of a hospital patient's gown and was located in a tiny room with a bed, a sink, and toilet inside. In front of me was a huge pane of glass with a door in the center, and on the other side pristine white walls and a perfectly clean ceiling and floor. An exit door was on the other side, as white as the walls, barely distinguishable from the walls. The glass was blocking me from exiting, and I started to understand in my half-conscious mind that I was a prisoner here. Hey! Hey! I shouted and then started to ram the glass door with my shoulder. After about 10 rams, I saw that there wasn't a single mark there, and my shoulder was throbbing. I shouted some more, knocking on the glass, but there was no response from anyone. I sat down, defeated, and thought about everything. The last thing I remembered was me being scanned for infection, Daniels being killed by the captain, and me getting knocked out. How the heck did I get infected? Was it the muddy water? I wondered where Bracken was. I looked around and saw a camera in the upper right corner of the room, so I started to shout at it. Hey, I know you can see me. Tell me what's going on in here. I wanted to reach for the camera to rip it off, but it was way beyond my reach. I cursed, pacing around the room for what felt like hours, until I just gave up and laid on the bed, falling asleep. I woke up to the sound of the door slamming shut. I raised my head and saw Reynolds with 2 armed men in the room outside, striding towards me. Rise and shine, pretty boy. Reynolds shouted, and I approached the glass door. What are you doing? I asked, furious and desperate. You're infected, therefore you're valuable to the government. You're going to stay here and be used as a test subject so the researchers can continue to improve the parasite. What? Who knows, one day when the parasite is under control, you might even walk free, but only if we're certain that you'll be obedient. This is a very noble cause you're volunteering for, Pierce. The parasite takes over soon. Your experiments won't give results if the parasite has already killed the host. You're right, and that's why one of the scientists in the facility has concocted an antidote or whatever which freezes the parasite for a long time. He smiled maliciously. Where's Bracken? I asked. Oh, don't worry about him. You just do what we say and you won't get into trouble. He placed his key card on the door and it opened. Turn around and put your hands behind your head. One of the soldiers ordered and I obeyed. They handcuffed me and dragged me to the laboratory, where I was placed in a chair while the doctor gave me a shot. A soldier stood in the room the entire time observing me. This will freeze the parasite, he said, for at least 1 month. After that, we'll give you another one, but if you start to notice any changes, let me know. He turned around and asked the soldier to help him with something at the shelf with files. The soldier approached the dock and they were turned away from me. I looked around to see if there was anything that could help me escape. There was a scalpel right next to me. All I needed to do was to grab it and stab the soldier before he turns around. I glanced at the soldier and then at the scalpel again. It was now or never. I braced myself to get up and grab the weapon, and just as I was about to do it, another soldier walked in through the front door. Doc, HQ wants a report on the blood tests, he said, glancing at me and then back at the doctor. Yes, right away, the doctor responded. Please escort the subject back to his confinement. The moment was over and I was too late. I was taken back to my cell, being mocked by the soldiers along the way for being in the predicament that I was in. From there, being tested was a regular occurrence on a daily basis. It must have been about a week of living in that cell when one day, no one simply came to bring me food or take me to the lab. I thought that it might have been a day off or something, so I simply continued sleeping. But then a few hours later, a power outage had occurred, enveloping the room in complete darkness. I heard gunshots and screams echoing in the distance, and instantly stood up, squinting in the dark and trying to make out what the sounds were. Emergency power restored. A voice echoed through the facility and red lights turned on in the room, giving me some form of visibility. And then the glass door in front of me suddenly opened and I stared at it in disbelief. I was free. Just then the entrance door swung open and a soldier barged in with his gun trained on me and his flashlight blinding me. Freeze, he yelled. Don't shoot. I raised my hands. The beam of light searched my face, forcing me to close my eyes. The soldier then lowered his gun, allowing me to see his face illuminated by the emergency light. Come on, Pierce. We're getting the heck out of here, Bracken said. Bracken? You made it. I could hardly contain my smile. There's no time for a bromance, we gotta move. The facility's been compromised, there's an outbreak. He handed me a handgun and led me through the door. Listen, he said. Zombies or not, you can't hesitate. If they catch us, they'll put us back in the cell and continue their research. So how do we get out? I have no idea where the heck we are, I shrugged. We're in one of the underground research facilities. We're on floor B21. We can take the elevator out, but what? We can't let this thing spread. We can't let the government kickstart this program again either. So how do we stop them? Bracken pulled out a C4 explosive and said, The main generator is on floor B31. If we blow it up, it will initiate a chain reaction, and this whole facility will be gone. Wait a second. Soldiers are probably everywhere. We'll never make it. The soldiers are busy trying to contain the outbreak. There's only going to be a few of them down there. Come on, let's go. Before I could say anything, he turned around and proceeded down the hallway, forcing me to follow him. "Hold on." He stopped me when we had reached the corner. I heard voices, and when I peeked, I saw soldiers frantically yelling orders and pointing their guns at something. They started shooting, and screams suddenly filled the air, echoing throughout the facility. In seconds, these soldiers were overwhelmed by those rabid freaks. "Now's our chance. Let's move," Bracken ordered, and I followed him. "The elevator on this floor has guards in front, so we gotta take the stairs," he said, jumping over a dead scientist. I saw through the glass military and research personnel being attacked in the lab next to the corridor, but we used that diversion to move along without attracting anyone. Soon we got to a fire escape and entered a flight of stairs leading both up and down. When I looked down, I couldn't see the bottom due to the dark and the fact that the stairs had stretched far down. As we descended down the stairs, I suddenly felt dizzy and my legs becoming heavy as if they were made of lead. My stomach burned like somebody stuck a fire poker here. "No time, Pierce, move it." Bracken helped me up, his boots echoing throughout the room. "The parasite," I muttered. "I think it's starting to get to me. I thought the scientist froze it." Bracken shook his head. "No, they sped it up. The parasite can remain dormant for years inside the host. They wanted to speed it up." I felt my heart sinking, and with it, all my hopes. "There's no cure, Pierce. There's no way out for us. But we can give the people another chance. We have to do this. Got it? Do you got it?" He shook me by the shoulder. I gave him a week. Yeah. And he urged me to get back on my feet and continue. I couldn't despair now. We had a mission to complete. My strength returned and the pain in my stomach had subsided, so we continued. About halfway through, I asked, "How did you get out? And how did you get that gear?" There was a subject who had gotten taken over by the parasite. He responded while continuing down the stairs. He attacked one of the guards and I took down the other one and then killed the infected. I took the guard's weapon and uniform. I hate those patient clothes they gave us. I chuckled. Even here at the end of the world, he was nonchalant about everything. Just as we had reached floor B27, the door swung open and 3 soldiers barged in. They spotted us, but before they had time to react, Bracken and I gunned them all down. As they fell dead, the unmistakable screams of the infected resounded throughout the facility, too close for comfort. I grabbed one of the dead soldiers' rifles and continued to run down the stairs with Bracken. I turned around to see how far behind he was, seeing that he was only a few feet away. Another door burst open and a zombie ran in between Bracken and I, sprinting at my teammate. Bracken shot him and then 3 more ran in, practically sliding into the room. We eliminated them as well. Bracken rammed the door before the others could join and held it with his back, as it rattled violently. "Go, I'll hold them," Bracken shouted, throwing me the C4. "Set the charges." I picked it up, and when he saw my hesitation, he yelled for me to go once again, and I listened, telling him to hold on. I descended as fast as I could, hearing screams and gunshots on the upper levels. When I finally reached B31, I opened the door and ran towards the main generator room. 2 soldiers pointed their guns at me, commanding me to freeze, but I shot one and ran for cover. The other one opened to fire but missed. I shot from around the corner and managed to hit him in the shoulder, knocking him down. I ran to him quickly, kicking his gun away from him and shot him in the face as he begged for his life. The main generator room was much larger than I had expected, and the generator itself occupied most of the space. I secured the area and pulled out the C4. I set the timer to 10 minutes and placed it on the generator, from a side where it wasn't so visible. I then ran outside the room and sprinted across the corridor towards the elevator. Before I could reach it though, somebody jumped on me from behind the corner, tackling me to the ground and making me drop my gun. "Not so fast, Pierce," Reynolds shouted, pointing his gun at me. I kicked his shin, knocking him down and jumping on top of him. As we wrestled on the ground, I punched him, but he managed to knock me off of him. I got up just in time to see him swinging his knife at me. I dodged and used the momentum to slam his head onto the wall. I grabbed his hand and slammed it against the wall over and over until he dropped the knife. As we struggled like that, he managed to wriggle out of my grasp and charge at me, knocking me on my back. He was on top of me now and started to punch me violently. "You're not gonna stop this, Pierce," he shouted, swinging violently as my face exploded with pain from each punch. He then put his hands around my throat and squeezed. I looked to my left with my darkened vision and saw the knife on the floor. With all my remaining strength, I reached for the knife with the tips of my fingers and swung with all my might. I felt it connect to something and Captain's weight was off me. Reynolds pulled the knife out of his shoulder and looked at me with pure anger in his eyes. I turned onto my stomach ready to crawl away, my vision blurry and my breathing painful. In front of me on the floor was the gun that I dropped when Reynolds tackled me. I crawled towards it, hearing Reynolds cry while he charged me again. I grabbed the gun and turned around. Reynolds was running towards me with the knife raised and I pulled the trigger. Nothing happened. I did it again and again with him drawing ever closer. Just as he was about to bring down the knife on me, 3 loud bangs had resounded in the hallway. Reynolds staggered and his look of anger changed to one of surprise as he dropped the knife and fell to his knees, coughing up blood. I looked to where the shots came from in time to see Bracken limping towards me. "Well done, boys." Reynolds chuckled painfully and looked up at me as I stood up. "You did it, but you're already dead, man. You know that, right?" He fell on his side, clutching the part of his chest where Bracken shot him. "Either way this ends, we stop this thing from spreading. That's all that matters, Captain. I hope getting killed over nothing was worth it." I stepped around him and called the elevator. "You didn't stop a thing." I turned around to face him and he continued, "This thing will spread, millions will die, and it'll be all your fault." I felt more anger boiling up in me, but I controlled myself. Bracken, however, pointed his gun at Reynolds, completely red in the face. Just then more screams of those zombies came throughout the facility, drawing closer by the second. The elevator door opened. "Bracken, leave him. He's dead either way," I said. "He killed Daniels." "And I would do it again." Reynolds laughed. "I just gotta say, blowing his brains out like that and silencing his loudmouth forever. Priceless." Bracken seemed even angrier, veins throbbing on his forehead. "Bracken, don't do it, it's what he wants," I implored. The air was filled with those screams which got louder and louder. "My only regret was not being able to kill each one of you that way. But that's why I brought you here, so you can continue to serve as playthings for the government until the parasite is ready and then it can be released again. And you, Bracken, will be the national hero who caused all that." He laughed again. Bracken looked like he was going to explode. "Do it," Reynolds shouted while I screamed the opposite. The screams were very close now, and then Bracken just lowered his gun. "You're going to die a slow death down here. I'm going to let those freaks tear you piece to piece," Bracken said and entered the elevator. "Goodbye, Captain," I said and pushed the ground floor button. Dozens of zombies were coming down the hallway in our direction now. The captain reached out to us with his free hand and said, "Pierce, don't you leave me like this. Don't let them get me. Finish me off." I watched as the creatures started tearing Reynolds apart, and his screams mixing in with that of the zombies before the elevator door closed. Bracken and I were quiet for the duration of the ride, listening to the echoing cacophony of screams, shots, and moaning. We hoped the elevator would not stop anywhere along the way, and luckily it didn't. When the door finally opened, we sprinted out and through the empty lobby into the dark woods. I helped carry Bracken due to his leg injury, and we ran for what felt like hours, even though in reality it was just minutes. We stopped to catch our breaths, looking around for any potential danger. Just then the ground beneath us started shaking slightly, and soon after, we heard a very faint explosion in the direction of the facility. "We did it, Bracken." I gave him a pat on the shoulder, exhausted more than I had ever been in my life. "Now let's get out of here before backup arrives." He nodded, and we managed to escape there and are currently in hiding. I can feel myself changing gradually day by day, and I'm losing control of my body, so I don't know how much time I have left. I'll have to end it myself before I'm completely lost to the parasite, and I'm okay with that, since we managed to stop the government's experiment from spreading again. At least, that's what I thought. There are more and more reports coming in on the news of people committing acts of violent attacks on other citizens, all over the country. There seems to be no connection between any of the attacks, except for one tiny detail that they all share in common. The attackers all have bloodshot eyes. Today's episode is sponsored by Fume. You ever try to break a bad habit and felt like you just can't gain any progress? Yeah, I've been there too, but here's a breath of fresh air. Fume. It's not about giving up, it's about switching up. Fume takes your habit and simply makes it better, healthier, and a whole lot more enjoyable. Fume is an innovative, award-winning flavored air device that does just that. Instead of vapor, Fume uses flavored air. Instead of electronics, Fume is completely natural. And instead of harmful chemicals, Fume uses delicious flavors. Your Fume comes with an adjustable airflow dial and is designed with movable parts and magnets for fidgeting, giving your fingers a lot to do, which is helpful for de-stressing and anxiety while breaking your habit. The feel of it is great. It's extremely fun to fidget with and helps me relax and chill out after a busy day while also providing a healthier alternative to a bad habit. Start the year off right with The Good Habit by going to tryfume.com/MrCreeps and getting the Journey Pack today. Fume is giving listeners of the show 10% off when they use my code MrCreeps to help make starting the good habit that much easier. Start the good habit at tryfume.com/MrCreeps to save 10% off of the Journey Pack today. I shouldn't be sharing this information, but I cannot let this go idly by. I know I'm going to be called a conspiracy nutjob, but you need to believe me. I work as an NSA contractor. We have a protocol called packet catch, and without going into the technicalities, it isolates outgoing internet traffic from some locations and prevents it from reaching its server. To ensure the user is unaware, the system sends a false receive signal, posing as the accepting server. Basically, you make a Facebook or a Reddit post. The OP gets a posted successfully message, even seeing the posts themselves, but the thing never goes anywhere. This gives us the ability to not only intercept communications, but to sandbox them entirely. It's disturbing tech, but not as disturbing as what I saw caught. This communication came through. It got filed under a huge program called Project Winter. Below, I have the debrief, but I don't have time to decrypt some portions. I barely have time to translate this. I hope this post's okay. I've disabled a packet catch in my office for now, but I don't know how long that I have. File 1, state 785321, 1256. Origin 45. Info. Intercepted communication via NSA Packet Catch Protocol 55. Supervising Officer General Scott Drake. Classification level top secret. Summary. Asset information has been encrypted. Intercepted communication of fighter. The purpose was to warn of asset incursion. Asset had previously eliminated target designated primary and was en route to the secondary target location. Transcript to follow. translated from modern standard Arabic. Begin NSA packet catch protocol intercept. My brothers and I cannot send this through the normal channels. I will address the world, for they must know of the horrors the Crusaders are unleashing. My name is Abu Adani. I have fled my camp and my brothers, they are all dead, slaughtered by the Crusaders' beast. We were camped out, a fire going and talking about our strategies, how much land we have lost, how the Crusaders are pushing us back so suddenly despite a lack of drone strikes. It was then the proximity alarms went off. Mullah takes his rifle with Mission and Ali. What is out there, Mission? Mullah asks. Mission looks out through his thermal goggles. It's at least 3 of them very close together. He looks at his goggles in frustration. This must be broken. A loud howl is heard from the darkness. All of us ready our weapons. Mullah even picks up his rocket. We alert the camp and everyone getting their weapons and rousing our sleeping brethren. Myself, Mullah, Mission, and Ali head out over the dune, weapons at the ready while the camp turns on floodlights and starts generators. On the far side of the camp, one of the lights suddenly goes down. We hear shots being fired and screaming. We run as quickly as we can to the other side of the camp but stop as another light post falls, sparks flying. Only the light of guns and sounds of conflict and screaming coming from the fallen lights. A sudden explosion occurs. A truck carrying fuel flies into the air in a fiery blaze. Someone launched a rocket inside the camp. What fool would do such a thing? Soon, the next closest light is knocked down, and the same sounds are heard. Gunfire, screaming, and then silence. We are standing at the next light post. We run, heading into the desert darkness, hoping to outrun whatever is attacking us. Mission turns and looks at the camp with his thermal goggles. Something's coming, he shouts. Before any of us can react, Ali shouts, a beast. Before our eyes, a hulking mass of white fur and muscle attacks Ali, ripping his head off in an instant and flinging the rest of his body at Mullah. I start shooting the beast. Mission tries to ready his rifle, but the creature rips off his arm. As it draws closer to me, I can see it illuminated by my gunfire. Its head is that of a wolf, massive jaws and rows of teeth surrounded by black jowls and white fur. 2 pointed ears on its head twist and twitch, searching for noise. Its yellow eyes fix on me. Its nearly 10-foot tall mass barreling toward me. Each moment of gunfire shows my bullets pitting into its white fur, staining it red. I continue to fire, trying to strike the creature's head. A hail of bullets collides with the mighty beast's skull, and it falls to the ground with a yipe and a whimper, sliding dead in front of my feet. Mullah staggers towards me. His leg is injured from having Ali's body hurled at him. Before our eyes, the beast begins to shrink, seemingly dead. Before long, the beast turns into nothing more than a man. He's a powerful-looking man, with very dark skin and no hair. The only thing he wears is a set of dog tags. We drag his body back to the camp and begin to build the fire taller, ready to dispose of the body. Whatever unholy creature this is, it must be burned. Well, that's what we thought. Other fighters join our efforts as we try to ready it hotter. It has to burn this unclean thing to ash. Mullah groans in pain. What was that, Abu? Is it a man? That thing, it was huge. A monster. The Crusaders grow desperate. They make pacts with demons to destroy us, but we will not let them win. By Allah, we will triumph over the Crusaders as always. Before I finish, I hear screaming from behind me. I turn only to see one man being dragged off behind a tent, the body of the creature now gone. Nothing but a trail of blood in the sand leading to the rest of the camp. Mullah is limping, but he has his rifle ready to die in battle, a martyr. Other fighters join me, who is where I am unsure of at the time. All of us surround the fire, our backs to it hoping that it'll stave off the beast. Of the 10 tents, there seems to be 3 already ravaged. We spot the beast running from one tent and moving to a fourth. More gunfire now. Red splatters against the tents and limbs can be seen hurled into the air before the light is snuffed out. More men run from the camp towards our fire, joining us in our last stand. We open fire, trying to cover their escape, our shots barely distracting the creature's attention. After a few moments, all is quiet in the camp. We hear the sounds of generators being powered down, an occasional burst of gunfire. The lights are all out. The only light from the bonfire behind us. Our shadows obscure the now darkened camp, and I hear the sounds of shuffling men behind me, some reloading their rifles, some kneeling down and praying. From the darkness, the creature leaps into the air, howling, and it pounces on Mullah, killing him as I hear his spine snap, his ribcage collapsing beneath the weight of the mighty beast. The creature rips his head from his body, despite Mullah's body being crushed. One of the fighters points his rocket at the beast. Before I can stop him, the creature pounces on him next. The fighter falls into the fire, the creature pushing him in with massive hands. It does so knowingly. It grins a sick smile at me, its yellow eyes locking on my own as it does. My eyes grow wide as I watch my brother in arms burnt to a cinder. I drop my weapon as fast as I can. In the distance, I hear the screaming panic of my fellow fighters. But I must live to tell others. I know that I must. I hear more screaming, bursts of gunfire, and then the sound of ripping and tearing, mixed with the cries of the beast. Finally, I turn only to see an explosion, the bonfire blasting into the air. Someone must have fired their rocket at the fire, or a grenade went off inside of it. To my abject horror, someone's head sails through the air and lands before me in the sand. I turn away, hearing more sounds of death and horror. In desperation, I stop near the head and begin to dig into the sand frantically. I dig as my life depends on it, and then I bury myself, taking my shirt and holding it over my head to leave air enough for me to breathe. I lay there and wait. The waiting seems to take hours, the sounds of the beast ravaging the camp and muted by the sand over my shirt. My body freezes as I feel footsteps near me. The sand vibrates with the mass of the creature. I can hear its breath, sniffing and snorting in the air. It sniffs near me and I pray to Allah that it is sniffing the head instead. I feel something on top of me, something rolling. The creature is rolling the head over me. I hold my breath, trying to remain perfectly still. I hear the beast sneeze and it shakes itself and the footsteps vanish slowly. After a few more minutes, I peek my head out. I see nothing. No fire from the camp and no light. I hear nothing. No sounds of my fellow fighters. No sounds from anything living. Even the head is missing, likely taken by the unholy monstrosity of the Crusaders. I jump to my feet and run. I run and do not look back. For hours I run until I see the next camp. The fighters there help me, get me to my feet and give me water. If it had been the day, I never could have crossed such a distance in the sun. That is why I write this now, and I will send it to the world. My God, I hear the howling. I must send this before the Crusaders' beast devours me. Be warned, the Crusaders have sold their souls for victory. End packet intercept. Run received a signal, success. Enclosed documentation considered classified, top secret, air-gapped storage only. Distribution of file in any form is a federal offense. I'll try to upload more of this when I can. Right now it's difficult to even get this stuff out. For all I know, I'm going to be dead in the morning, but I had to send this out somewhere. So, I found more information on this thing. This is a debrief of a pilot working the operation. This was some kind of mission or a running op from the military. I found this project under the name Project Winter, but there's a constant name running here, sometimes named White Wolf, otherwise named Demon Winter. I didn't have time to decrypt everything the first time, so I'm just copy-pastaing this so as soon as possible to get it out there. I have no idea how I'm still alive, but I don't think that I have a whole lot of time. I'm going to die for the truth, I guess. This isn't something that should be kept secret. I'm going to try and flee the country after this post. I'm hoping that I can get out, wish me luck. Here's 3 more files I managed to get my hands on. File 2554 state 787-325-1572. Origin USA 55. Info unauthorized communication from S97 Pilot SBC. Darren Francis, Project Winter, Transport Operations. Supervising Officer General Scott Drake. Classification TS SCI. Source file 355-3423-23-3234. Date 12/22/2018. Asset information has been encrypted. Capture of unauthorized communication from S97 Raider pilot after a drop asset. Sergeant Demon Winter to primary target and follow-up to the secondary target. Begin NSA packet catch protocol intercept. I have no idea where to start, so I'm just going to write this here and be done with it. This was insane. Insane. I get top secret missions all the time and I understand discretion, but holy crap, man. This is beyond what I'm paid to deal with. I'm going to start up slow and work my way to how insane things got. I'm an S97 Raider pilot SBC, Darren Francis. I do drops all the time for spec ops in this thing. Sometimes solo, but usually not. Usually I'm happy to fly this thing. It's one of the few transport choppers that can hold its own in a firefight. I got tapped by General Scott Drake for work on this special project. I was told that I would be dropping off in a specialized raider. It had some stealth tech on it. A self-destruct button included. Awesome sounding, right? Wrong. Real wrong. It all started out as a normal mission as far as I knew. Sitting at the base, waiting for my passengers, I knew that I had a crew of 2. That was all the intel that I got. That and the destination. 2 guys start towards my chopper, and at this point, I realized something was up. The first guy seemed like your normal, everyday soldier. The dude was about 6'1" maybe, high and tight cut, wearing desert fatigues and olive rucksack. Had a weapons case in his other hand and some pretty heavy mirrored sunglasses. The last bit was odd considering how it was nearly dusk at the base. Granted, at all other times it's bright as heck in the desert. The second guy was different. This guy was almost 6'6", a bald head and mean looking. He is walking behind the other soldier wearing nothing but his camo vest, pants, and boots. Doesn't even look like his boots are tied. The guy has no gear, just a pair of cigars in his hand as he gets to the chopper. The first guy climbs up into the chopper and plops himself down into the co-pilot seat. He offers to shake my hand. Sergeant Elon Winter, nice to meet ya. I shake his hand. Specialist Darren Francis, you ever fly one of these before? I asked as I spin up the dual rotors. He nods. Oh yeah, only crashed one, he grins. I frown. We only have 2. Well, now we do. He laughs, slapping me on the shoulder. I'm messing with you, pilot, calm down. This big guy peeks his head between us after he shuts the side door. Stop messing around, Elon, it's going to be sundown soon. He glances at me. Killing time. And with that, he fades into the back and he straps in. Sergeant Elon looks at me. That's my older brother, Desmond. Don't piss him off. I frown and get the Raider ready to launch. Sergeant Elon looks to the controls and checks some pre-flight stuff with me. I'm surprised because this is normally a solo kind of run, or so I was told. Not many people fly these Raiders. The S-97 is newer than new, not even technically in service yet. They didn't tell me that I was going to have a co-pilot. It's a nice surprise. I inform Sergeant Elon. He smiles to me. Oh, I picked up most of this stuff from the other pilots. Eventually got myself cleared for test flights and such. Granted, I've never taken one full bore. He gives me a side glance. I chuckle. You know dang well it's only rated at 200 knots. I get the chopper in the air, keeping her level. Sergeant Elon straps in. Yeah, just because they don't want their baby's paint job scratched up. He looks at me. Punch it. I nod and get the Raider in the air. After we're a good distance from base, I let the dang thing rip. I love this bird because while flying level, the thing doesn't shake, it doesn't heave. Barely vibrates. I glanced at the airspeed gauge and laugh as it hit 250 knots. Elon speaks into the co-pilot headset. Unofficial record's 255. I nod as I see us creep towards 254. Wouldn't know that we were going that fast unless you kept an eye on the gauges. Sergeant Elon shouts as we hit 256. Oh baby, let's book it. Sergeant Deadman growls from the back. What the heck are you hooting about? Sergeant Elon chuckles, looking back to the cabin. Just working on getting you to the drop zone early, brother. Sergeant Deadman merely leans back, head hitting the headrest of his seat. Get us there in one piece. I lean over. Did he say speed up? Sergeant Elon nods. Yes, he did. I grin as we push the Raider to 270. I'm sure that she could have gone faster, but at this point, I noticed on the GPS that we were getting near our destination. That meant time to drop altitude, lower speed, and set these stealth modes on. Sergeant Elon sighed. Worst part's about going that fast is we don't get to go that fast for too long. He grins, holding up his fist. I bump it, smiling. You're better company than most, Sergeant, I shout. Elon just grins as he pulls out something from his pack. It looks like some beef jerky. He tosses it into the back cabin. Load up. I'll have plenty to eat out there, Sergeant Deadman says. Long pig aplenty. Elon's face falls a bit as we get closer to the destination. In the distance, I can see an encampment. Looks to be about 100 or so guys down there. We're plenty far from it, and I slowly bring the Raider down low over some dunes. I check the thermal cameras and the entire camp is lit up. Too many combatants to really count. Sergeant Deadman is unstrapped and opens up the side door. We gotta count? I shake my head. It's too hot, man. That place is at least 100 combatants. I don't think this is going to work without an airstrike. It's a freaking buffet, Sergeant Deadman says, shooting me a serious look. His eyes are flashing yellow. All I can eat. He jumps down. I notice that he left his boots inside. I look to Sergeant Elon. Did he just take his boots off? Sergeant Elon's not in a joking mood anymore as he moves to the back, unpacking a huge sniper rifle from the weapons case. Turn us so, I have a clear shot of the camp, Darren. His voice is almost devoid of any emotion. I notice that he took a sip of something out of a blue bottle. He almost looks exhausted as he finishes putting the rifle together. I just nod, turning the chopper about 90 degrees. He's just doing recon, right? I hear a loud howl in the distance. Sergeant Elon lays down prone, setting his rifle up on the floor of the Raider, barrel pointing out the door. No. Before I know it, I hear gunfire in the distance and the whole camp lights up with searchlights. Shortly after that, they start to go down. I mean, the lights literally start to fall. Holy crap, I say. Sergeant Elon is talking to him via radio communications, spotting through the scope of the rifle. I'm linked into the same frequency as well. Got a runner on their west side, pop him or let him go. A gravelly low voice comes over the comms. Pop him. Sergeant Elon doesn't move. Keep her level, Darren, he drones. I prep the stabilizers and keep the Raider solid and steady. After a moment he fires, the chopper barely shudders. Sergeant Elon states flatly, "Tango down." Sergeant Deadman's gravelly voice creeps over the comms, giving me a shiver up my spine. "Pop, pop, I'm making 'em drop." There's growling before the comms cut out. Sergeant Elon looks like he's ready to pass out. His eyes are drooping. "Sergeant, you alright?" I ask. 10-4, he says simply, a weak smile coming over him. "Give me 5 minutes." There's a blast from the camp now. The whole place looks to be on fire. Sergeant Elon starts into the comms again. "Runner, south side. He's booking." Sergeant Deadman growls through the comms again. "Let him go. I'm gonna track him to the next camp." Sergeant Elon picks his rifle up and pulls the magazine out. He leans back and pops a small red bottle of something, knocking it back. He closes his eyes and starts to take deeper breaths, some color coming back to his face. "The heck is wrong with you?" I ask. Sergeant Elon chuckles. "Well, nothing now. I'm not dying anymore." He packs his rifle back up and then takes a seat in the co-pilot chair again. "We're going to be following a run of thermals, so no more fun beelines. Kinda sucks, I know." I nod. "I should drop down to pick up Sergeant Deadman," I say before I hear a thud in the back. The radar shifts slightly. I turn to see Deadman in the back, shutting the door, his face covered in blood. I shiver. Sergeant Elon reaches into his rucksack and tosses a small bag at him. "Clean yourself up, man. You look like you just went down on a girl during that time of the month." Sergeant Deadman grabs the bag and pops it open. "You're a freaking laugh, right? You know that." He spits something out. I swear that it's a chunk of bone. I decide not to ask any questions. I just look to the thermals and see the single guy pop out of the sand, running in the dark. I keep a good enough distance so he can't hear the chopper. Sergeant Deadman is now right behind me, and he sniffs the air next to me. "Scared?" I shake my head. "You're an idiot not to be," he explains. "Fear keeps you alive. There's a reason you feel it. It's only natural." "Enough, Deadman." Sergeant Elon starts. Sergeant Deadman glares at Elon. "No, it's never enough." Elon rolls his eyes and just keeps them on the thermal cameras. I decide to ask a dumb question. "What did you do to them? How'd you survive that many men?" Sergeant Deadman cracks his neck and grins. "I can do what an entire SEAL team can't. I can drop in, kill 87 targets and get out. It's just what I do." "With your mouth?" I ask. Sergeant Deadman is silent for a moment. "Don't like letting things go to waste. Besides, long pig is a delicacy." "What the heck is long pig?" I ask. Sergeant Elon shakes his head. "Go easy on him, bro." "Long pig is what I call those freaking monsters masquerading as people down there." Sergeant Deadman stands behind me, on hand on my seat, the other on Sergeant Elon's. They're people," I said weakly. Sergeant Deadman shakes his head. "No, man, they're a gift." I frown. "A gift? What the heck are you talking about?" A sick grin crosses Sergeant Deadman's face, and I swear that I see his canines lengthen. "They're the evil the U.S. has needed for so long. The dark enemy we needed to cut loose and go full bore on. We haven't had that since World War II. "What are you talking about?" I ask, keeping my distance from the man running. He's moving fast for a guy on foot. "What, these guys? Everybody agrees that they're bad. Afghanistan, yeah, there were bad people in there, but most of those guys didn't want to mess with us. Iraq, the same thing. Can't blame the people living there, but that group? These guys signed up to be murderers and thieves. They desiccate their own holy sites, claiming they aren't holy enough. They murder innocent people on live TV, all for the privilege to die by our hands." Sergeant Deadman clenches his fist next to me. "They want to die, so I'll oblige them." I want to bail out of this freaking chopper, but I just hold steady and hope not to upset him. I mean, there's gotta be a limit, right? We can't become monsters hunting these guys. We'd be worse than them. "Worse than them." Sergeant Deadman laughs, leaning his head back as he does. You think anybody cares about these guys? Russia dropped Willie Pete on these guys and the UN turned a blind eye. This is it. This is the modern age. No one cares how they die. They just want them gone. Even the fighters want to die in battle. It's their goal, their desire. Why deprive them of it? Sergeant Deadman moves into the back. Let me know when that little guy gets to his next camp. I'm gonna take a nap. He strapped himself in and slipped a pair of earbuds on. Sergeant Elon turns next to me. Sorry about that. He gets heavy on nights like this. He's really riled up. Nights like this? I ask. Sergeant Elon nods, motioning to the moon. I look up, noticing that it's full. After several hours, we finally see the target make it to another camp. This one is smaller and didn't seem to be on any of our maps. Hey, I think we're here. Sergeant Deadman pops the side of the door open and jumps out. The chopper is over 50 feet in the air and he just bails out. Sergeant Elon makes his way to the door. Lower us down and point me to the camp. I doubt we're going to follow another one. He pulls out the blue bottle and takes a swig of it, laying down and readying his weapon. I frown, nod, and do as I'm told. Amid similar chaos in the next camp, and this time lacking Elon picking anyone off, Sergeant Deadman pops back into the chopper after Sergeant Elon clears the doorway and takes his seat next to me. Sergeant Elon takes another swig from the small red bottle. Sergeant Deadman burps and closes the door. Let's go home. I'm stuffed. Stuffed? Does he eat all of them or just some of them? Jesus, what the heck was I transporting? I put the Raider full tilt back to base, making it back in under an hour. I had no plan on being with these nut jobs any longer. I hope to request a transfer out going forward. Sergeant Elon looks to me before he leaves. Sergeant Deadman putting his boots on and hopping out the second that we land. Hey, my brother's not that bad normally. He's only trying to mess with you, I promise. I frown. What the heck is he? Sergeant Elon just shakes his head, his smile fading. If you haven't figured it out by now, man, I don't know what to tell you. He's exactly what you think he is. Exactly what you think he can't possibly be. He sighs as he pulls up his rucksack and gun case. He's a soldier. End packet intercept. Run received a signal, a success. Enclosed documentation considered classified. TS, SCI. Air gap storage only. Distribution of file in any form is a federal offense. The communication kicks out here, but there's a debriefing that I found, and it's the scariest part of this entire thing. It's a transcript of sorts. File 255, state 7855, 55668. Origin USA 117. Info, mission debriefing. Supervising Officer General Scott Drake. Classification, TS, SCI. Source, File 6688-55-1174. Date, 5/5/2017. Summary, transcript of debriefing after 100th successful mission of Project Winter. Asset is speaking with SO regarding reassignment. Debriefing. Recording begins. General Drake speaks first. Debriefing number 100, mission success. Asset, Sergeant Deadman Winter. Supervising Officer General Scott Drake. Date, May 5th, 2017. Happy Cinco de Mayo, sir. Sergeant Winter begins. Comfortable, Sergeant? No, sir. Well, that's a shame. Wanted to see how you were doing. Seems to be going better than the previous program so far. Lightning doesn't strike twice, it seems, sir. More like a twister the way we found the other volunteer. You wanted me to create someone like me but didn't give them the opportunity to tear men apart. I had to defend myself. What did you expect, sir? I expected a pack. I didn't expect to find two men with their throats ripped out. They messed with the wrong alpha. I guess that makes you unique, doesn't it? Seems you're better working alone. Papers shuffle, sounds of them sliding across the surface. The program is going to take a hiatus while we prep some better transports for you. Growling noise, followed by something slamming down on the tabletop. Are you trying to mothball me? More growling. Sir. No, Sergeant. We're merely giving you a break. You've done over 100 missions so far and we're pleased, but we don't want to work you too hard. Permission to speak freely, sir. I'll regret it, but granted. I love to kill, sir. I lust to kill. I feel it home in blood. You send me home and you'll find that I'll do the same, just stateside. So, a repeat of your father then. Growling and snarling is heard. A chair slams into a nearby glass window, shattering it. You want to end up like him too, sir. A pistol is heard being cocked. Sergeant, I want to remind you of two things. Firstly is the chain of command in threatening a senior officer. Second is the silver nitrate rounds that I have loaded into this pistol. I may be an old man, but I'm still a crack shot. I'll plant a right in your heart. The chair scrapes against the ground and is set back up. I'm sorry, sir. You know my father antagonizes me, sir. It's his death keeping you in this program to begin with, lest you want to go home and face charges for murder. Yes, sir. As I've said, a lifetime in solitary. No one wants that, especially one with a lifetime like yours. Understand, sir. Regardless, if you don't take the R&R, then I'll push you back to active duty. Thank you, sir. But your brother is likely going to want to take a break. Understood, sir. Good. We'll get you back out there in a week. Think you can hold out until then? No promises, sir. Maybe one of you is all we do need. End of recording. Enclosed documentation considered classified, TS, SCI. Air-gapped storage only. Distribution of file in any form is a federal offense. This guy ran a crapload of ops, but I don't think he's doing it anymore. I found some details here in the final file that I'll upload. File 3547 states 58565, 88742. Origin USA 55. Info Project Debrief Mission Commencement. Supervising Officer General Scott Drake. Classification TS SCI. Source File 77555-32-6585. Date 1/31/2018. Summary. Recommendations from Captain Sofia Vasquez regarding key asset in Project Winter. Debrief. Reading Sergeant Winter's debriefs puts a great concern on whether or not Sergeant Dedmon Winter can adapt to normal society after countless successful missions in a solo environment outside of his own brother, Sergeant Elon Winter. Add to his hostile reactions to off-duty recommendations toward multiple SOs makes his integration highly unlikely. On numerous occasions, Sergeant Dedmon Winter has expressed his love of killing and states that the war cannot be won without him. Outside of egotistical behavior, this appears borderline psychotic. Recommendation would be to reinstate into another hostile environment where Sergeant Winter is most comfortable. Either that or mental health counseling to ensure that he can properly adapt to life at home. But this is doubtful. I feel Sergeant Dedmon Winter would refuse mental health evaluations at every turn. Sergeant Winter has already requested reassignment. Highly recommend that he be given that reassignment rather than being sent home. Sergeant Winter would be happier to be KIA than to return stateside. I share General Scott Drake's opinion that we all would be better off as well. Captain Sofia Vasquez, USA. Project End. Asset to be assigned to Project Seraph per requesting officer Colonel James Montgomery Anderson. Transfer of SO from General Scott Drake to Major TC. I literally cannot find anything on a Project Seraph. It's like the file doesn't exist on the database, which is insane. It's one thing to see something showing up as classified and getting no access, another to not even see it at all. I wonder if they don't even have it on the database at all, maybe only on paper. I can't imagine why they wouldn't trust their own computers, nor do I get why the SO's name is abbreviated here. I'll see if I can get any more information on Project Seraph, but for now, this is all the interesting stuff that I have on Project Winter. Wish me luck. Hey there, I'm Jason. I'm German and I'm in the Army. The 12th Motor Brigade. I know, interesting, huh? I didn't think so, and things weren't interesting for a while, until yesterday. I'm here to tell you my 3-year experience at Site Omega. From driving a patrol and inspecting trucks carrying suspicious cargo, to being put on guard duty at the base proper. So this mess all started when the Sarge came up to me and said, "Look, Jace, you've done a lot for the regiment and I thank you. But I need to ask you a favor. I need you on night patrol duty." "What?" I began. Now, I wouldn't have asked you if we had someone else available, but Heinrich's on leave. Carl's recovering from injuries and Fritz, well, let's not talk about him. You'll find instructions that I've written for you in the Hummer. See you tomorrow." And with that, he walked off. The next night, I got into the Hummer and was just about to start when I suddenly remembered the note that Sarge had left for me. I got it out of the cup holder, out of all places. Here's what it said. "Good evening, Jason. First off, I want to make one thing completely clear. This is not by any means a joke. You know I don't do jokes and your life may very well depend on it. Rule 1. Do not, under any circumstances, get out of the Hummer, ever, with the exception of rule number 5. Rule number 2. If the radio in the Hummer crackles to life, answer it. And if you hear anything other than my voice, shut it off. They are trying to locate you. Rule number 3. The patrol route is clearly marked with yellow signs. If you see any sign other than yellow, stop the Hummer and radio the base. We'll come and resolve the issue. Rule number 4. You'll most likely encounter an old man. Stop and ask him what he's doing. If he says that he's lost, point him in the direction of the nearest town, which is 3 clicks due west of here. If he says anything else, floor it. Run him over if you need to. Rule number 5. If by any point you need to go to the washroom, do it in under 3 minutes, because that's the time that it takes for them to find you. Rule number 6. If you encounter another Hummer during the patrol, hail them. If they respond, continue as usual. If not, stop the Hummer, shut off the engine, and pray to God that they didn't see you. Rule number 7. If you see anyone on the final third of the patrol, take the Glock 19 out of the glove compartment and shoot them, no matter who they are. If you haven't shot within 2 minutes of seeing them, you're screwed. Rule number 8. If at any point your Hummer breaks down, radio the base immediately, and someone will come pick you up. Rule number 9, the most important one too. If you return to the base and see yourself waiting in your spot, contact security immediately and request that you be put in protective custody. The guards will understand, and they will tell you once they've dealt with the situation. And lastly, be careful out there. We've lost 2 soldiers out there already. Don't become the 3rd. Good luck. Sarge. Okay, so what did I just read? I thought to myself. Never mind, just get on with it. And so I started out on the patrol, with the guards in the towers holding their hands in some sort of prayer, and then they waved me through. The first few hours were peaceful, with the yellow signs telling me which part of the patrol that I was on. And I was at the 1/5 mark when the radio crackled to life, and it nearly made me hit my head on the roof. Number 2, if the radio in the Hummer crackles to life, answer it. And if you hear anything other than my voice, shut it off. They're trying to locate you. I almost lunged for the receiver and held it up to my ear. It was a woman weeping on the other end. I was paralyzed. I was trying to compose myself when the weeping turned into amused laughter. God dang it. I slammed the receiver down so hard that I cracked the case, and I booked it the heck out of there. I was petrified, and I didn't snap out of it until the 1/3 mark, and that's when I noticed the signs were blue. Number 3. The patrol route is clearly marked with yellow signs. If you see any sign other than yellow, stop the Hummer and radio the base. We'll come and resolve the issue. I slammed on the brakes and immediately radioed the base. Come in, I said. I'm on patrol and I noticed that these signs are blue. Roger that, Sarge said. Someone's on their way now. By the way, you seem on edge. Is anything wrong? He asked. Nope, I lied, not telling him what had happened. Everything's as fine as it should be, Sarge said. Okay then, well, someone's on their way. They'll reach your location in 5 minutes. Hold tight. After what seemed like 2 decades, a Jeep pulled up and someone stopped out. He told me to cover my eyes and ears and then proceeded to do some stuff that would likely result in me being banned if I described it. The next few miles were not eventful, except where I saw another Hummer in the road. Thankfully, when I hailed them, they responded. So, there's rule number 6 out of the way for now. When I got to the final 1/3 of the patrol, I was on edge. I thought that I heard screams from the woods, but I shrugged it off and kept on going. I had to slam on the brakes to avoid running over my wife. What the? I began to think, when I remembered. Number 7. If you see anyone on the final 1/3 of the patrol, take the Glock 19 out of the glove compartment and shoot them, no matter who they are. If you haven't shot them within 2 minutes of seeing them, you're screwed. FML. I reached for the gun, but I couldn't do it. Her eyes were begging me not to, and I didn't want to, but I knew that I had to or else I was dead. Tears rolling down my cheeks, I leaned out and I pulled the trigger. I cursed to no one in particular. I just drove on with the knowledge of what I had done to my own wife. Now things were getting serious. I was approaching the spot where I saw him, or rather, me. I was just standing there, with a too wide, malicious smile on my face. Number 9. If you return to the base and see yourself waiting in your spot, contact security immediately and request that you be put in protective custody. The guards will understand and will tell you once they've dealt with the situation. And so I called the guards and they asked me what was wrong, and I just pointed at me since I was too shocked. The guards glanced from me to me and back again, nodded and escorted me to a private cell. After about 3 hours, the guards returned and let me out of the cell. Now, that's my patrol story. I'll get to the mysterious cargo shipments when I get some beer and psychological help. See you soon. So, a couple of things have happened in between my last update. First, I can confirm that I really didn't shoot my wife during my patrol last night, thank God, and that my post has changed. So the sergeant came up to me today and said, "Hey Jason, I heard about last night and I was impressed how you handled the situation. Most people wouldn't have made it back." "Thank you," I said. "Well, don't worry about it," he responded. "But I have a new job for you tonight. I need you to handle delivery security tonight." Okay, sir, I think I can handle it." "Don't worry, Jason. Heinrich's back and Carl is recovered, so they'll be joining you too. You start at 6:50 p.m. and finish at 5:15 a.m. Have a good one." "Good one, yeah, right," I thought as I got ready for my shift. The delivery section of the base was big. 4 trucks could fit in it and there would still be room to spare. I saw Heinrich walk up to me. "Guten Tag, Jason," he said. "Oh, hey Heinrich," I responded. "How's the family?" Good, but my son has a fever. Ready to start, Jason?" he asked. "Yeah, I am," I responded. "But where's Carl?" "Oh, he's at his post. But you need to hurry, your shift starts in 5 minutes. I thanked him and noticed a note pinned to a wall that said, "Delivery positions. Heinrich, rations. North entrance. Carl, medical supplies. Northwest entrance. Jason, Mechanical Supplies, Northeast Entrance. So, I need to head to the northeast entrance, I thought as I walked towards my post. I was still thinking about last night when I bumped into a door. My position was etched in bold on a brass plate on the door. Well, here I am, I thought, and then I turned the doorknob. It was unlocked. The room was cooler than it was outside, and it had a lever on the back wall, and a console with screens on the left. And in the very center, there is an item that made my blood run cold. It was a note with instructions on it. Cursing my bad fortune, I gingerly picked the note up. Here's what it said. Hello, guardsman. This note is to prepare you for your following shift at this post. Please read these instructions carefully and follow them to a T, or very unfortunate things will happen to you. Rule number 1. You only have mechanical supplies coming through here. If you see any truck marked otherwise, direct them to the appropriate entrance. Rule number 2. Our trucks have the base logo on the side of them, which is a white octagon with the Omega symbol inside. If you see trucks without said logo, alert security. Rule number 3. Lock the door at all times. Rule number 4. Between 11:50 and 12:30, do not exit the room. No truck should come through at this time, giving you no reason to go out. Rule number 5. Your squad mates have their own jobs to do. So if you hear knocking on your hopefully locked door, and hear your squad mates asking you to open up, ignore them. Rule number 6. Howling from the woods is natural. Screaming and or crying is not. If you hear the latter, get the Myuuji from the drawer and pray that the door holds. Rule number 7. If you see anyone at the entrance, use the intercom to direct them to the civilian entrance. If they have no face, pull the lever at the back of the wall, which will close the gates and contact security. Rule number 8. If you're inspecting a truck and hear a music box playing, order the driver to open the back and shoot anything inside. Remember, you have machine parts and supplies. Nothing should be moving. Rule number 9. You will see a young woman in the room. She will give you useful items like extra magazines or spare batteries. Take what you need, but for the love of all things holy, don't say no. Rule number 10. This almost never happens, but if you see a red truck coming off the road, immediately close the gates and pray you hear the truck skid off the road, or else the cleaning crew will need to use a mop on you. This is not a prank nor a joke, and we are not responsible for whatever happens if you decide not to listen. Sincerely, base security. Oh great, this again, I thought while I pondered why I had agreed to this. Well, too late to back out, it's getting late and I need to start. Locking the door, I waved the first few trucks in. The first few hours were not eventful with only a handful of trucks going to the wrong place, but I redirected them to either Heinrich's or Carl's post. But then I noticed a truck that had no visible symbol. Number 2, our trucks have the base logo on the side of them, which is a white octagon with the Omega symbol inside. If you see trucks without said logo, alert security. Come in, base security, I nearly yelled into the radio. There's a truck bearing no logo at the northeast entrance. Could you send someone to deal with the situation? Roger that, someone's on their way, the voice responded. About 2 minutes later, a guy in body armor tapped on my window and told me to look away, and then made some loud noises and then cursing broke out. When I turned around, the truck and the guy were gone. Confused, I continued on. It was now 11:50 and no trucks had come in, so I radioed Heinrich to ask how stuff was going along. Heinrich? Come in, Heinrich, I said. Oh, hello, Jason. Heinrich's cheerful voice filled the room. Hey, Heinrich, how are things going on your end? I asked. Oh, not much. Some drivers came from your gate, I believe. I could barely contain my laughter. Those idiots, I said. I got 3 of yours and 2 of Carl's. Speaking of, have you heard from Carl at all? No, I haven't, Heinrich said. But I'm sure he can handle them. It was here that I was interrupted by the loudest scream that I had ever heard. It sounded like the depths of hell were opening up on the other side of the door. "Jason, what's happening?" Heinrich yelled out, and I couldn't answer. Every regret of my life was running through my mind, and then... "Oh, I'm fine, Heinrich." I looked at the time. It was at 12:30. Number 4. Between 11:50 and 12:30, do not exit the room. No truck should come through at this time, giving you no reason to go out. So, that's why I thought as I waved the next truck through. I can't believe I just noticed, but Site Omega is whack. So I finished the last few trucks, luckily without the music box, and was about to wrap up when I saw something on the camera. It was a red truck. Oh, heck no. Number 10. This almost never happens, but if you see a red truck coming off the road, immediately close the gates and pray you hear the truck get off the road, or else the cleaning crew will need to use a mop on you. I dove for the lever and nearly pulled it out. The truck was just a mile away, but the gate was closing so slowly. I prayed that my death would be swift. But at the last minute I heard something swerve off the road and slam into the wall. Oh, thank God. "Heinrich, check in. Carl, come in," I said. "Here," said Heinrich. "Here," said Carl. "Okay, I need a nap. I'll see you guys after I've found more beer than last time and more psychological help." So I'm back at it again and in the hospital, treating some wounds after what happened tonight. If you're getting confused, I don't blame you, so let's get started. So, I was in my quarters recovering from my patrol and nightmarish delivery guard duty when a note was passed under my door. Here's what it said. "Attention. It has come to the knowledge of the High Command that a known organization called Warrior Liberty Front, not to be confused with Washington Liberation Front, has been targeting military bases all over the country. As such, Command has ordered all soldiers with 3 years of experience in the base to meet in the mess hall, no exceptions, so guard roles can be distributed. Sincerely, Head of Security." 3 years of experience, I guess that's me, I thought, still recovering from the past 2 days. When I got to the mess hall, I saw Heinrich, Carl, and a few others that I didn't recognize. "Hey guys, did you see the note?" I asked them. "Yeah, I saw it, but I don't know what post I'm going to be assigned to. I wonder what..." "All right, you idiots," the High Commander suddenly yelled out. "I put your roles up on the wall. Now do your duties unless you're too dumb to even read." And with that, he left and slammed the door shut. Still in shock, I said to Heinrich, "Well, there's your answer." And I went to view the paper. Guard pose. Hans, base perimeter. Fritz, Charles, Robert, and Carl, watchtowers. Heinrich, server rooms. Jason, archival room. Failure to appear at your post will result in severe reprimands. "Well, Heinrich, I'll see you tomorrow," I said to him before I walked off. Maybe I'll finally get some answers tonight. It took about 5 minutes to get down to the archival rooms, and I ran into Heinrich on the way there. "Hey, where are the server rooms?" he asked. "Head down there and take a left. My post is here," I said. The room was big with 5 doors that read Security Room, National Archive, Technology Archive, Scientific Archive, and Medicine Archive. Why one base would need 4 archival rooms was beyond me. When I entered it, I found a monitor linked to camera systems, a Mossberg 500 shotgun in a rack with 20 boxes of ammo, an earpiece, and of course a list of rules. Just by luck. Here's what they said. Archival room rules. If you're reading this, it means that you were picked up for the archival room guard duty. Feel free to read any documents that you wish, since they were declassified decades ago. Please follow these rules to best carry out your job. Rule number 1. There will be a check-in every hour. Be sure to answer. Rule number 2. You need to patrol each room at least once, but if you hear growling coming from the other side of a room door, skip it and reinforce the door. Reinforcements can be found under the desk. Rule number 3. By now, you would have heard of the WLF. Make sure to check the camera system every once in a while operatives carry equipment that jam electronic devices. If you see a camera in any room turn static, barge right on in there and shoot anything that moves. Rule number 4. Between 11:40 and 1:30, only view the cameras in each room. If a camera goes static, don't worry, whatever's in there will get them. Rule number 5. If you hear someone knocking on your door, say, "Ein Minute," and they'll leave you alone. Rule number 6. As stated before, read what you wish while on patrol, but please keep patrols no more than 10 minutes long. Rule number 7. If you see none of your fellow squad members while you're stationed here, if you see anyone while on patrol, immediately order them to identify themselves. If they don't, shoot them. Rule number 8. If you see a little girl in a red dress on any of the cameras, shut off the camera and reinforce the room door. Rule number 9. If you hear your earpiece broadcast in an unbelievably loud sound, take it off and crush it with your foot. You will not be reprimanded, but you won't be able to tell if WLF operatives are nearby. Rule number 10. If you hear laughter coming from any room, run to the security office and reinforce the office door. Do not remove the reinforcement until the end of your shift. Note: if you manage to capture an operative, alert security and they'll come and take him or her away. You're only going to be here for one night, since extra personnel will arrive in the morning. But until then, stay safe. Okay, so I'll only be here for one night, I thought as I pondered my life choices. Well, at least I'll finally get some answers here. I decided to head into the technology archive room first, since I had mechanical parts for my delivery guard duty and I'm just curious. Well, no WLF operatives have showed up yet. But I did learn lots of interesting things like the development of the German military and many of the stuff that we use. I was about to move on when this came through the earpiece. "Guardsman, this is your commander, report in." "Jason, redacted here, nothing on my end," I responded. "We'll copy that, Jason. Be aware that we got reports of operatives around the perimeter, and a suspected sighting in the server room 1, so be alert." "Yep, I got it," I said. And then I moved my way to the National Archives when I heard a growl from the other side. Number 2, you need to patrol each room at least once, but if you hear growling coming from the other side of a room door, skip it and reinforce the door. And so I booked it back, and sure enough, there were door barricades under the desk. I ran back towards the National Archives, and as soon as I had finished setting up the barricade, a huge thump rang out, and I was physically pushed back, and I landed on the floor. And thank God. After noping out of the National Archives, I checked the time, and it was 11:45. So I headed back to the office and I watched the cameras, and there was static on the camera in the scientific archive. I wasn't worried, in fact, when I heard the growling, screaming, and frantic shooting. I couldn't help but smile, as those WLF operatives had met a hideous demise. At 1:36, I grabbed my Mossberg 500 and headed to the scientific archive to find any survivors, and to my disbelief, there was a female operative that had survived. But after she had both stabbed and shot me 2 times, I couldn't believe it. If you manage to capture a WLF operative, alert security and they'll come and take him or her away. So I searched her and found a file named Swallow Song. I couldn't make anything of it, so I decided to give it to the commander when I reported in. "Come in," I said. "I have a female operatives in my custody, and I'm requesting pickup." "Roger that, Jason. Sending a team to your position. Good work, by the way." And so I took her back, but we didn't talk much. But we stared daggers at each other until the security team came, with the commander, and took the operative away. And I also showed them the file that I had found as well. "Well, okay, I'll look into it, but nice work tonight. I'll be sure to tell your sergeant about your performance." I thanked him and the rest of my shift was peaceful. Now, I'm in the medical ward to recover. I wonder if Carl went through the same situation. Hey everyone, I'm back from a busy night that was possibly related to Operation Swallow Song. So once again, the Sarge came up to me and said, "Hey, there's the guy that I wanted to see." And I said to him, "Hey Sarge, did you get anything from the operative that I had captured yesterday?" "No, she committed uninstall life before we could question her, but we're currently debunking theories on what this all is." "Is it related to the 262? Possibly, but let's not jump to conclusions yet. There's still a high security risk at the moment, so I need you to guard the reactor chambers." "I'm sorry, the reactor chambers?" I asked in disbelief. "Relax, you'll get special equipment when you get there. I'll see you tomorrow." "What? No. I said to organize a..." I heard him yell as he walked away. Luckily, I'm 2 days from retiring. I thought as I made my way down to the reactor chambers that shouldn't exist, by the way. When I got down there was a heavy blast door that had a note on it. "Caution. The security room is the only safe place from radiation outside of this area. The security room is beyond this door. There will be an airlock attached to the room. Repeat, the chambers are extremely radioactive, and you will die if you aren't protected. Authorized personnel only." Yeah, no kidding, Sherlock. I thought as the blast door automatically opened. The security room wasn't that big. Just a monitor hooked up to a couple of cameras, a panel controlling the chamber doors, a tactical hazard suit. Yes, those are a thing. An M4 battle carbine in a case and a file of German nuclear history for some reason. A earpiece and the rules, of course. Reactor room rules. While it may seem like this post will be uneventful, trust me, that can change in a dime if allowed. And these reactors are 2 decades old, so you better follow these rules. Rule number 1. Do not leave this room without your suit, obviously. Rule number 2. Take the provided carbon when out of patrol to each of the chambers. There may be unexpected guests that you may encounter. Rule number 3. The chamber doors are controlled by the buttons on the panel. Rule number 4. If any of the chamber doors open on their own, immediately close the door using the respective button, and seal all the doors using the lever. Rule 5. If WLF operatives are in the area, the cameras will show static, so go to the relevant chamber and deal with the situation. Rule number 6. If you are patrolling any of the chambers and if you see the door close, immediately pull the override lever and tall bot back to the security booth. Rule number 7. If you see a flashing red light on a camera in any chamber, shut off said camera and lock all the doors. It's not a meltdown. Rule number 8. If you hear crying or screaming coming from any chamber, lock that chamber's door. Rule number 9. All doors are marked with radioactive. If you find a door with biohazardous material in it, skip that chamber. Radiation isn't the only thing inside. Rule number 10. We have 4 chambers marked 1 through 4. If you see a 5th door, ignore it and contact base security. Rule number 11. There are no workers that are working during your shift. If you see anyone, inform security immediately and lock yourself in the office. And for the love of God, don't talk to them. They are not human. Rule number 12. Be sure to check the spent reactor power rods in each chamber. The list of spent rods will be on a list somewhere in the room. If the number of spent rods are less than the number listed, simply remove a rod, as one will definitely be spent. If it's over the number, run. Rule number 13. The most important part. If you see shadows in any of the chambers, turn off the camera before they notice. If they so much as glance at the camera, they've noticed. Note: if your suit is not at the specified location, contact the Special Engineer Corps and they'll resolve the issue. If you need more details, feel free to read all the papers in the file to be more educated. Do not disregard these rules, or radiation will be the least of your concerns. Sincerely, Special Security Ops. Thank God, I have to put up with this crap for 2 more days, my thought as I suited up before my shift. So, as my cancer chances increase every hour, it was time for my first round. Chamber 1 was first, and it was mostly uneventful, with all the reactor rods accounted for with no extras. And the next was more eventful, with the doors automatically closing behind me. Number 6. When you are patrolling any of the chambers, if you see the door close, immediately pull the override lever and haul butt to the security booth. I nearly lunged for the lever because I nearly forgot what to do. I pulled the lever and ran for it. After about 30 minutes, the camera in Chamber 3 showed some static. Well, time to take out the trash, I thought with a smile, as I grabbed the carbon off the rack. When I entered the chamber, I found 4 WLF operatives trying to heist some spent reactor rods. Big mistake. I took them out without hesitation. And then I found something out about Operation Swallow Song. A WLF operative had another file in him. This one described what the Schwalben are. The Schwalben are high-tech super soldiers apparently, and they use ammunition made from spent uranium, which has immense penetrating power. The Schwalben and the WLF are apparently a surviving Nazis group, and they plan on restoring Germany to Hitler's dream. After the cleanup crew came and cleaned up the mess, I heard crying coming from Chamber 4 as I was preparing to enter. Number 8. If you hear crying or screaming coming from any chamber, lock that chamber's door. So I relocked that thing and slid a conveniently placed metal bar across the door to deadbolt it. A second later, an animalistic scream and repeated slamming came from the door, and I was glad that the blast doors were built like tanks. After another half hour, I saw some more static, so I headed to the chamber. Nothing could have prepared me for what I had found. It was 2 people in exosuits trying to steal some more spent rods. It's the Schwalben. Crap. Thankfully, I will give you my all suddenly came through the speaker, and before I continue, I highly recommend that you listen to the song so you can get why I felt so epic at that time. The first one charged me using an extendable blade from its wrist, but it missed and slammed into the wall. The second one shot at me with an LMG. Gotta remember uranium bullets, and I shot back. And then the one with the blade again charged at me and nearly got me, but I dodged out of the way and made him hit the guy with the LMG, knocking them both unconscious. And then I took both out and hit him in the head. By the time security arrived, my shift was over, and I went to debrief with the head of security. I'll post again once I've figured everything out and I get this dang suit off. Hey everyone, so I was assigned to a new squad tonight, and it got more intense than ever. The Sarge came up to me and said, "Okay Jason, for your last 2 nights, I want you on the Omega Black Squad, our elite division. I don't know much, but they'll tell you more when you get there. Good luck." So I headed underground to the facility housing the Omega Black Squad. And once I was there, a gorgeous woman with green hair and eyes greeted me in the hallway. "Hey there, Jason," she said a little too enthusiastically. "I'm Selena and I need to give this to you." "Okay, so where do I?" I was interrupted by Selena giving me a bone-crushing hug. "What are you doing?" "Sorry, but you're really handsome and I've never seen a new person in like 2 years. Also, head to the break room. That's a map that I gave you. See you soon," she said as she walked off. Good God, I thought as I headed to the break room. When I got there, I didn't see anyone, but there was a Chris Vector machine gun, an earpiece, and rules which I could tell were written by Selena. Initiation instructions. "Hello, Jason. As per usual standards, all new members must undergo an initiation in order to be formally acknowledged by Omega Black. If you tell anyone, we will deny all knowledge of you and any procedures performed. Now the job is easy. Patrol the facility and there will be people with you. These rules are to ensure your safety. Rule number 1. Start a patrol every 30 minutes. Rule number 2. I will be in the security office at all times. If you see me in the hallway like how I greeted you today, ignore it. Rule number 3. You will see a ghostly white man in a two-piece suit with long arms. Do not show any signs of fear, and he'll leave you alone. Rule number 4. If for some reason you need to enter the security room, say the code word Alpha and I'll let you in. Otherwise, I'll shoot you. Rule number 5. The 3 members that will be with you are Fritz, Charles, and Hans. We do not have a member with the name Kruger. If Kruger is spotted, run to the break room and lock the door. Rule number 6. There will be a skeleton crew of workers in the labs and on janitorial duty. You are encouraged to talk to the janitorial staff, but don't disrupt the lab workers. Rule number 7. If you're patrolling and hear a female scream, haul it back to the break room and remain there for the rest of the night. Rule number 8. If you need to round a corner or enter a room, but you don't know what's waiting for you, ask me to check since I can see you on the cameras. Rule number 9. You can trust the janitors. They'll provide you with advice and warnings. Just be respectful and don't knock down the wet floor signs. Rule number 10. You'll get a Chris Vector SMG, but never shoot anything that hasn't engaged you first. Rule number 11. If you hear the elevator stop on this floor, enter and make sure that there's no blood in it. If there is, continue on your patrol, but say a prayer every 5 minutes. The type of deity doesn't matter, but make sure you say it in a clear and understandable voice. And finally, if you ever feel the need to chat, I'm always open to conversation. Sincerely, Selena. So, what do you say? Said a voice behind me and I nearly fell over. It was 3 heavily armored people with Chris Vectors as well. Oh, okay, I'm ready, I said in response. Great, your round starts soon, don't be late. Fritz, I think, said. Don't worry, I'll be with you, it's a 2-man job. So after around 20 minutes of waiting, Fritz and I started our first round. It was mostly uneventful with Selena guiding us from the security room. The next round was more intense. The slender man in the two-piece suit appeared in the hallway when I was minding my own business. When I turned around, there he was. 3. You will see a ghostly white man in a two-piece suit with long arms. Do not show any signs of fear until I leave you alone. I was terrified. It had no face and no hands, but I was determined not to show it. After what was far too long, he simply vanished. Jason, can you hear me? Selena yelled into my earpiece. I saw the slender man on the camera, are you okay? I'm good, I replied, except I may have wet my pants a little bit. Thank God. Fritz reported you missing 5 minutes ago. Head back to the break room, he's waiting. After I apologized to Fritz for delaying the check-in, I went back on patrol. I was getting curious, so I said to Selena, how long have you been on Omega Black? About 3 years, and as I said, you're the most handsome person I've ever met, she said. Ahem, Fritz suddenly blurted out. Charles and Hans were bent double with laughter. If you 2 lovebirds have finished flirting with each other, then do your freaking jobs. Oh, okay. You could practically hear the embarrassment in her voice. After trying to bleach that event from my memory, unsuccessfully by the way, I finally got some answers. I found a file named Cerebral Cortex Interface System, which, to quote, allows the user to transfer his or her thoughts and memories onto a computer system, but the user will be dead. There was a sheet of paper attached to the file that said this. This classified document details the steps to transfer one's conscious onto a computer system. Pros. Disabled can be free. People near death can be saved. People transferred into the system can control the base systems as efficiently as a human brain. The subject can talk to whoever was controlling it. The cons. The subject dies after transfer. The subject can't transfer between systems, can't jump from a PC to a laptop. The subject must be mentally stable. The subject can be corrupted by computer viruses. Dear God, I thought, this can't be real, right? After about 2 hours, my shift was over and I debriefed. I'll update you all soon. System online. Location, Site Omega, the Black Forest, Germany. Date, 7/21/20. Time, 16:30. Begin transmission. Hello, I've changed, and if you have questions, well, let's just say that I have no mortal boundaries anymore. After my last post, everything went wrong. I followed the rules and yet everything was wrong. Allow me to start from the beginning. It was the day after my last post and I had one more job left, which was to guard the redacted test labs as part of my former duty as a member of Omega Black. Now, what was in the labs? It's censored, redacted, data expunged, and the cerebral cortex interface system. When I entered the lab, a note written by Selena was on the security desk. Hey Jason, for your final night, we ask you to guard the redacted testing labs. You just need to make sure that the WLF, yes I heard, don't make it in. Just stay safe and you can ask me out when you're done. Sincerely, Selena. After I'd read the note, I started my usual patrol route. The rules hadn't changed from last time. 30 minutes had passed when I saw a WLF operative attempting to enter lab number 1. I dealt with him with minimal issues and went on as usual. Then, at around 11:50, I felt a sharp pain in the base of my head and I passed out. Get your butt up, said a voice in front of me. I didn't capture you for you to just sleep around. What the heck are, I began, and then I saw the WF logo on his sleeve. Who I am is not important, he said. What is important is your information on the inner workings of this base. You killed 7 of my operatives, 7, and that means you have many things stored in that head of yours and I need them. I'm not telling you anything, I said, and I'm definitely not telling you what's in there. Hey Jason, what's going on? Fritz suddenly appeared behind my captor. Fritz, shoot him! I yelled before I bolted away. I could hear Fritz unloading at my captor and his forces, but I didn't escape unharmed. A spray of bullets hit my side and one punctured an artery. Ah, dang it, I said through gritted teeth. And then suddenly the slender man appeared in front of me. Luckily for me, I wasn't afraid of him, but the same couldn't be said for my pursuers. What the heck? One of them sputtered out. As I ran away, I could hear them shooting and getting ripped to shreds behind me. And then 2 more showed up in the hallway to the left. One of these super soldiers yelled at me. As I approached the cerebral cortex interface system, a bullet hit me in the lung and I fell over. I swore. Now the interface system was the only thing that could save me now. As I prepared myself for the transfer, a voice ran out from the other side of the door. In there, get the freaking door open. I hurried with the preparations as the voice said, set the breaching charges. We need to get this door open. I pressed the button and everything went black. I saw as the security forces dealt with the WLF. I saw as they found my body. I saw as Selena cried her eyes out. I saw as they buried me with the Iron Cross. Now I shall control these systems and this base shall become great. For I am no longer Jason Redacted. I am Rasputin, the Kriegsmaschine. End transmission. Time 23:30. System status, standby mode. The rig is a towering skeleton of steel rising up and out of the water. To walk across its surface from one place to the next is a walk between enormous ribs of cold metal, beneath the glare of 100 blinking lights. like watchful eyes in the darkness. Red, yellow, white, staring. The military infrastructure on this rig is minimal at best. Communications facilities with direct channels to superiors, a maintenance station, and a unique modified Phalanx Seaways. An enormous gun anti-ship in its original design. We use it when required if the shadow in the sea gets too close. My name is Alejandro. I work for the US Army and I dislike working on this rig, but I get no choice in the matter. I am stationed here currently with Leighton and Evie, 2 fellow soldiers, and about 60 rig workers too. Though our interactions with the crew are minimal, they think we bring bad luck, and they might as well be right. The rig is 250 miles east off the coast of New Jersey. The wind is cold and fierce, and I shiver at my station as I squint out over the waves, gradually increasing in their intensity as they churn and froth against the rig's great legs. Leighton steps up beside me. I don't know what she's doing here. In the army, I mean, not on the rig. Our purpose on the rig is clear, even if it makes little sense. But Leighton was always too soft for this life, and now she's just too scared to quit, I think. I don't even blame her. Being told what to do is a pain, but at least we have our instructions. The instructions are simple. "It's going to rain tonight, Hondro," she says to me. "You think?" "Oh, I know. My hearing's playing up again. Means it's gonna rain." I reply disinterested. "Also, Command gave me the weather report earlier," she says. "In fact, look over there. You can see the edge of the rain if you look real hard." I follow her finger and sure enough, on the gray horizon, there is a shadowed column of rain in the far distance, beneath a steadily rolling, building crescendo of clouds. The relevance of the rain is significant. The dot P is far more likely to arrive during such weather. The greater the obscurity in our surroundings, the more likely it is to appear. I lean back against the rail behind me and rub a hand across my weary eyes. Allow me to explain our duties here. The .P is an acronym for Disturber of the Peace. It's the name that Leighton and Evie and I came up with to describe the anomaly that plagues this particular rig. The .P arrives only at night, between the hours of 1 a.m. and 6 a.m. It takes the form of a Greenpeace ship, a small to mid-size icebreaker typically. The name of the ship varies, but the ship that most often frequents the rig goes by the name of the Watchful Guardian, though we've also had visits from Rainbow's End and Forgotten Queen. And we've been in contact with Greenpeace, the organization, the real one. They have no knowledge of such ships and claim no affiliation. These ships arrive out of nowhere, through mist or from the waves themselves. If you're lucky enough to witness an arrival, the crew on board is unique to each of the 3 ships, though the 3 crews are constant. I know this only by the clothes that they wear, and by their voices. Their faces are covered to protect them from the cold and the wind, face masks, thick scarves, and ski goggles and the like. It unnerved me at first, but now it's just a part of the experience. I sigh. It's all so tiresome. The boredom, the brief little stabs of stress, the circular nature of these cycles of fear, the repetitiveness of it all. The Greenpeace vessel will try to encourage us to join them. That's their thing, to try and encourage us to abandon the rig. And then, when the shadow is due to arrive in the sea, the vessel departs, and off they sail into the mist and they vanish. The next time they come by, they have absolutely no memory of their previous visit. It's maddening, really, if one chooses to think about it. I choose not to. Instead, I choose to chat it up with Leighton. You ever wonder where the .p goes when it leaves for the night? She asked me. It's not the first time that she had asked this question. I used to, I tell her. I don't much care anymore though. Yeah, but you don't really care about anything, she mutters. Untrue, I say back, but I don't have the energy to argue. Why don't they remember us? She asks. The crew, I mean. How come they always forget? Maybe it's just all an illusion, a trick, so that the shadow in the water can get us. No, she says, shaking her head and wrinkling her nose. I don't think so. The ship always seems pretty scared of the shadow. If it wasn't for the shadow, then they might even stay all night trying to convince us to join them. But the shadow always comes, I say, looking out over the water as the sun disappears beneath the sea. It always does. Yeah, she murmurs. Yeah, I guess that's true. Still, I don't think the crew are evil. They seem too nice. Maybe they really are trying to, save us. They seem too nice, I repeat, shaking my head. They're dangerous. Don't let them into your head. Yeah, she says quietly. Sure. A noise behind me makes me turn and I make eye contact with a rig worker. He gives me a curt nod, glances to Leighton and then carries on along his way, ascending a mesh metal set of stairs to the level above. They think it's our fault, I say to Leighton. Again, not for the first time. Our topics of conversation tend to go round and round again, circular. The rig workers think that we're the ones who bring the ship, who draw in the shadow. Maybe we are, she shrugs. Oh, BS. The anomalies came first and we were sent out here to deal with it all. It's not like the ship is dangerous though, Leighton says. It's never actually attacked us. Yeah, that's because we're here. I know you're familiar with deterrence, Leighton. We studied it together. She opens her mouth to continue, but I'm not done. And besides, the shadow in the water is definitely dangerous. Maybe our presence here is the only thing stopping the shadow from doing what the .p always promises it will. And heck, who knows what their true motives are? I'm not convinced, she replies. Are we a deterrent to the shadow too, do you think? Does it even know that we're here? Oh, it knows, I mutter. It really knows. Night falls. Evie's joined us now, and we watch as a trio, our eyes peeled for any hint that tonight might be a night that the disturber of the peace makes an appearance. There's no way of knowing really. As I said earlier, bad weather increases the likelihood, but it's never guaranteed. Command has been trying to establish a pattern, but if they have one, they haven't chosen to share it with us on the rig. I don't even know why we're bothering to even look out for it. The ship, I mean. Just to force a habit, I guess. And the small matter of it being our orders to do so, of course. I suppose it is rather unnerving when the ship appears out of thin air. I don't like being caught by surprise. The rain falls, the waves froth and crash far beneath us. I'm gonna go check out the north side, Evie says to us. What? Leighton shouts above a sudden blast of wind. North side, Evie says again louder. I'm going to look for it there. No, I call out. No, don't bother, it's already here. She turns. The Greenpeace ship has begun its grim emergence. Waves crash and bulge out at sea, in a way dissimilar to all the other waves around it. The mist thickens in the area, and in this area alone, I think that I catch a glimpse of a shiny white-gray hull, but it is hidden from sight almost immediately, as the mist breaks like a bubble and disperses out and across the water. Attention, Evie murmurs beside me. Attention, comrades of the rig. The voice comes blaring across the sea just a few seconds later, rumbling from a megaphone and carried by the wind. "Attention, comrades of the rig." I chuckle, raising my rifle. I won't do crap from here, but again, it's part of the procedure. Deterrence, warning shots if required, etc. The vessel begins to enter into plain sight. From the fog, it rises and crashes through the waves, roughly parallel to us, but drawing slowly closer. I grab the binoculars and peer through them for a quick look. I recognize the crew, of course. I scan down to the ship's name, Watchful Guardian. Yep, it's our regular visitor. I look back over the deck and I count 5 people, all standing roughly the same distance apart, one holding the megaphone. He wears a thick blue parka and a blue mask, with an orange visor and a pair of goggles. The others are all adorned in colorful clothing too. There's a woman amongst them who wears a pink jacket. She holds the megaphone sometimes. It's impossible to tell the gender of the others. They never speak to us, so we can't even tell by the way of their voices. "Comrades of the rig," comes the voice again. "This rig and the people upon it are in mortal danger. The beast approaches and you will need to evacuate onto our vessel immediately." "Do you want to do it this time, Hondro?" Evie asked me, holding out the megaphone. A roar of wind makes us all take a step back, and her ponytail is sent whipping around her shoulders. I reached out for the megaphone. "Sure," I say, bringing it up to my mouth and lowering my weapon. I step up to the rail and lean out over the edge. "I thank you for your concern," I call back over the water, "but this rig is well equipped to defend itself. Thank you, and now please be on your way." "You don't understand," the man on the deck replies. He throws out a desperate arm and plea. "Your drilling here has encouraged the attention of the beast. He will strike an attack and bring down this rig before the morning. You need to allow us to dock so we can get everyone to safety." "You're approaching the limit of the safety zone of this installation," I call back, well familiar and well bored of this tired old routine. "Your ship is in danger of wreckage. Turn your boat around and steer clear." The ship draws closer. It's close enough now for me to read the vessel's name without the use of binoculars. The man lowers the megaphone and says something inaudible to the woman in pink. They both gesticulate wildly, and then the man brings the megaphone back up to his lips. "If we are able to dock, then you have a chance to escape. Do you have no radar equipment available? The beast will be converging on this location as we speak. There isn't time for debate. If you want to live, then you need to board now." Thunder ripples through the sky, and a faraway flash casts deep but temporary shadows across our environment. We have radar capabilities, of course, by the way, but they never reveal anything in the water. Sometimes we get readings from the .P itself, but not always. "You're too close to the rig and at risk of a wreck. If we believe you to pose a threat to the U.S. citizens aboard this rig, then we will shoot down your ship. Please consider this a warning. Turn your vessel around and depart." "Please," shouts the man, with such intense desperation that even despite the frequency of this little performance, it still gets to me. That gnawing doubt. I push it away. "Turn your ship around," I shout back. "You will not be warned again. We are receiving no signal or suggestion of any threat to this rig but yourself. Turn your ship around." Sometimes the .P leaves at this point, but sometimes it doesn't. There are a great many variables, and the 3 of us spend our mornings following these incidents, writing up play-by-plays per command to study. As I said before, we're yet to receive any meaningful intel back for our report writing. Maybe one day, though our shifts will probably be done by then. Maybe there will be something useful for the next crew. The man in blue hesitates. He talks to the woman in pink, and his other 3 shipmates stand motionless. Sea legs have ironed as the ship rocks and sways on the surface of the sea, but they themselves stand stock still. He brings up the megaphone. Comrade, allow us to dock. This entire rig must be evacuated. The beast will tear this entire apparatus and the people upon it to shreds, or worse. Please, you must evacuate. You are in danger. All right, I mutter to Leighton. Fire a warning shot. She hesitates. I look at her. Leighton, fire already. She does. There's a bang and a brief flash, though it's impossible to tell if the bullet even struck the ship. The man in blue gets the message, however. I appreciate your concerns, he shouts, but this is no trick and no trap. The beast approaches. We can save you. We can take you to safety, don't you get it? Please, at least, let us dock. Talk to us. Turn your ship around, Captain. I bellow into the megaphone, or the shots we fire will increase in intensity until the threat that your vessel poses to us has been neutralized. Why are you firing at us? The man shouts back. For Pete's sake, we're trying to help you here. Don't you care? Do you think me a liar? I cannot risk the lives of my crew for you, so this is your final chance. Allow this vessel to dock at the rig, and you will be able to make an escape. We have space aplenty for. Evie, stationed with the Phalanx Sea Whiz, brings the great gun around with a rattle and a mechanical crunch, aiming the barrel at the hull of the Watchful Guardian. The man stops mid-sentence and lowers the megaphone. He shakes his head in frustration and says something to the woman in pink, who immediately runs from the deck and through a door in the cabin. You are warned, soldiers, he calls back. May God save you. I'm sorry. And with this, he too strides from the deck. The other three follow in single file. A horn blares from the ship, cutting through the froth and churn of the dark waves and the rush of the rain. The Watchful Guardian groans and rumbles and picks up speed, arsing around and away from us in a slow circle. They're leaving quickly tonight, Leighton says anxiously. Don't you think? I glance at my watch. No, not really. She shifts. I don't know. Haven't you noticed this? I swear that they're starting to leave easier and easier. Easier? Evie asks, stepping down from the rig's weapon. Yeah, like they don't put up much of a fight. You remember way back in the beginning, we could argue with them for hours. Well, we threaten them a little more now. I respond with a shrug. It saves us time for sure. Leighton doesn't respond. She only chews her tongue in thought. A low, bone-trembling rumble warbles through the air. It comes from beneath and shakes the rig in time to the thunder. I can feel myself paling, the blood draining. I hate this part. I know that we'll be okay, I know it, but this part is still by far the worst. Leighton grips the rail, her eyes widening. The beast is louder this time too, she says. No, you're imagining things. Evie cuts in. Come on, split and search. Let's see where this thing's going to appear this time. We separate, running down the sides of the dock. The location of the beast's arrival is useful intel. And typically, it appears on the opposite side of the rig to the .P, but again, it's not a guaranteed rule. The rig is deserted as I run between its steel. The workers stay well clear of us during this ritual. It hampers productivity somewhat, I suppose, but what the heck. I don't really care about any of that, and I don't blame them. 2 agonizing minutes pass by. Every second that goes by without seeing the beast sends my anxiety levels spiking. Every night I convince myself that this will be the one time that the .P has told us the truth. That the shadow in the water will attack and bring down the rig. That we'll be consumed, drowned, taken, torn apart, or even worse. My heart stops for a moment when I catch sight of it. The shadow in the water. The beast. I grab my flashlight and hold it up to the sky, flickering the thing on and off and on and off. The others, if they see it, will come to join me. If not, well, the rig isn't that big and they'll find me eventually. I peer out over the edge, the wind cold against the exposed skin of my face. The beast is, by my guess, about a half-mile long. It is difficult to tell exactly how long, however, as its shadow only becomes visible as it approaches the surface, and it frequently dips and lowers as it navigates the depths of the surrounding sea. My teeth are sent shivering in my gums as that dreadful deep-sea roar reverberates around the steel of the rig, goosebumps rippling up my arms and neck. "Hey," Evie says from beside me. "Found it, whew. That definitely took longer than usual tonight. You know, I sometimes fear that." "Yeah," I interrupt, knowing what she's going to say. "Yeah, I know, same." The shadow slithers and snakes beneath the waves, and due to its size, it gives off the illusion of being slow-moving. It's not until it's right beneath us, however, beginning its dutiful circling of our station, that one really gets a sense of its speed. The beast begins to circle, around and around. I try to keep the warning words of the .p out of my head. I make a mental note of the location of the beast's arrival for when it comes time to write up my report, and I exchange a few words with Evie. She nods and returns to the seaways. She may or may not fire down into the beast. Hopefully she won't. It's rare, very rare indeed, that we are ever required to strike the shadow itself. But those nights are not fun. They are not fun in the slightest. I walk the perimeter of the rig until I locate Leighton. She stares down into the water, watching in silence. "You good?" I ask her. She nods but does not respond. The beast departs as the weather begins to improve. Still in the depths of the night, but the rain and wind are lessening now. With one final terrible roar, the beast breaks its circling and begins to slither off and away into the sea, quickly descending back down and vanishing from sight. I allow myself a deep, slow, calming breath of Atlantic air, almost tangibly feeling the tension leave my muscles. Great, wonderful. Another night done and time for bed. I'll write up the first draft of the report now and then go over it and update it in the morning. It's important to write down everything of note before going to sleep while the memories are still fresh. I am always careful to keep Leighton's comments omitted when she questions our role here or the hostility of the .p. She just speaks before thinking. She's like that, and she doesn't mean anything by it. Her words would be considered blasphemous by some, and I'm no narc. I write up what I need to and head to my dorm, crashing quickly into a dreamless sleep. It's 4 more days until the .p returns, and we all can tell it's going to be one of those nights, even before the sun is set. Everyone, including the rig workers, are on edge. The clouds spend the course of the day slowly gathering, growing, billowing up and out, and filling with ice and with brutal, bitter water. And I am afraid this evening, actually afraid. I hate myself for it, but I cannot help it. It's the same every time, Alejandro, I tell myself, the exact same. We are never attacked, nothing ever happens. Just stick with it and you'll be fine. And so, we prepare for the night. We await the coming of the .p as the first great sheets of rain begin to wash their way across the horizon towards us. I cringe and brace as the first icy droplets fall into my face. Then more, and then, in seconds, the sound of the torrent against the steel and into the sea is almost deafening. "I feel weird tonight, Hondro," Leighton says to me, fidgeting. "Like, I don't know. Something's different." "No, it isn't," I gruffly reply. "It's the same as it always is." "The last time that the beast was here," she begins, but I cut her off. "No, Leighton, don't think about it. There are variations, but the state of play is always the same. The dot P arrives, it leaves. The shadow arrives and it leaves. That's all that there is to it. She murmurs something else, but I don't hear what she says over the sound of the rain. She glances over the rails and into the churning water below. What is it? I ask her. Evie looks over too. Nothing, she says, glancing at me from beneath her hood. I thought I saw. What? I ask. Nothing, she finishes lamely, before turning to take her leave, preparing for a perimeter walk in search of the dot P. Our line of sight is dreadful tonight. Absolutely dreadful. Evie and I have to get the searchlight working, something that we very rarely use, as it limits our night vision. But when we don't have much vision at all, our options are pretty limited. We only have the one though, so once it's up and running, I take command of it, and the two of us use it to scour the sea. Nothing appears. It's gonna appear tonight, surely, Evie asks. I mean on a night like this, surely. You would think, but maybe not. I grunt and swing the searchlight around. Maybe it isn't coming tonight at all. Evie snorts with grim laughter. Yeah, if you say so. She pauses. Layton's taking her sweet time. An offhand comment, but still. I lean back from the searchlight to make eye contact with her. I'm gonna go check up on her, I say, outwardly calm but inside suddenly panicked. Evie nods, sensing the change in atmosphere. I relinquish control of the light and I set off around the rig's perimeter at a half jog. Layton should have been back by now. She should have been back ages ago. I increase my pace a little, boots splashing in the shining puddles across the rig's surface. They clang against a set of metal mesh stairs as I descend down to a lower platform. I glance up and out to sea. Crap! I yell out loud and slip on the stairs, grabbing onto the rail for support. I can see the boat, one of the disturbers of the piece. And it's docked. It's docked at the rig, way out on the opposite side. I break into a run now, sprinting between the bars and metal bones of the surrounding apparatus, skidding across the platform towards it. I take the final set of stairs, 3 at a time, landing heavily at the bottom and running across to where the ship rocks and shudders in the waves beside the lowermost platform. And there is Layton, preparing to board. She looks back at me and our eyes meet. Layton! I scream out into the storm. What is she doing? What the heck is she doing? She quickly looks away and jumps across to the ship's deck. She lands with a stumble and is welcomed into the arms of the woman in pink, adorned in mask and gloves and goggles. The man in the blue is also there. This must be the watchful guardian. Not that it matters, I suppose. Comrade, he calls out through the megaphone. Welcome, quickly, jump across to the ship. There's still time to get you out of here. To get you all out of here. I stop at the edge of the dock, panting. I've never seen the crew of the dot P so close. They stand completely still, legs shoulder-width apart, all facing towards me. Layton's hair is blown out to the side in the gale. She clenches her fist and then says something to the man in blue. He nods and passes her the megaphone. Alejandro, she shouts through the device. I think we're supposed to board. They're just going to keep coming. We have to board for the cycle to end. What are you talking about? I shout back, though I have to really project without the use of a megaphone of my own. Who cares about the cycle? Layton, get back out of the rig right now. You're in danger. How could you be so stupid? She violently shakes her head. Tonight is the night, Andro. The beast is going to finally take down the rig, please. If you don't want to be torn apart and lost beneath the sea, then you have to board. They're just trying to save us. Have you lost your mind, Layton? I scream back. I raise the rifle and aim it at the man in blue. Leighton steps in front of him, blocking the shot. Jesus! I shouted at her, furious and terrified. Leighton, please, don't do this. Don't do this, there's still time. I give voice to this thought. There's still time to come back. Please. She hands the megaphone back to the man in blue. Comrade, the beast approaches. Are you able to evacuate the rig? Everyone needs to be off in the next few minutes. Please, send her back, I shout to him. Let Leighton off the ship. I don't understand, he calls back. You need to join us. This whole rig is going down. You don't stand a chance against the beast. I'm sorry. Please, evacuate the rig. I take aim and I fire. The megaphone flies out of his hand and a large piece shattered right off. The man in blue stumbles back in alarm as it clatters to the deck. He makes a gesture to his crew, and at once they retreat into the cabin. The ship's engine starts to groan. Leighton shouts something at me, but I don't hear what she says. The man crouches swiftly down and grabs the damaged megaphone, calling back one last time. I'm sorry, but I can't put my crew's life in danger like this. May God help you. I hope by some miracle you survive the attack, soldier. And with that, he departs. He opens the door to the ship's cabin and gestures for Leighton to go inside. Leighton, I shout, please just come back. But the ship is pulling away from the dock, rising and falling in the angry waves. And with a final glance, Leighton passes through the doorway, and the man in blue follows. The ship pulls back and sails off into the storm. I take aim and fire off a few more shots, though I don't know why I'm bothering. I manage to mark the hull, a nice clear bullet hole by the G of Watchful Guardian, but there is nothing of any use that I can do. Nothing that I can do but watch in distress as the ship turns away, as it sails off through the chaos of the storm and sea, plunging through the waves and into a slow spreading cloud of mist, vanishing from sight. And the beast follows. It always does. And tonight is the worst. I have never felt so close to death. It wastes no time in its emergence, the great encircling shadow, and I am trapped in a state of terror. Why would Leighton board the ship? Why would she board unless she knew? Unless she knew that this is the night that the rig goes down. It's going to attack. The beast is going to attack the rig. We're going to see it all in its truth, in all its horror. I race from the platform's edge to the opposite and back, always keeping eyes on the beast. I relay the situation to Evie, who struggles to believe me, even with the intensity in my voice. Shots are fired into the beast as that monstrous roar ripples up through the rig's metal, as it echoes with the thunder, and the waves are sent crashing and frothing above the slithering shadow. The night drags on. Years of my life are lost to the storm through the sheer stress of the situation. The searchlight swings around and around, but the beast is not attacked. Maddeningly, thankfully, torturously, the beast does not attack. Even after everything, the storm, the foreshadows, the warning, there is simply no attack. The beast just circles, around and around and around until the storm starts at last to subside. With a final, menacing, watery roar, the shadow begins its final descent, breaking off from its path, swimming out to sea and sinking back down into the depths, until it's lost completely from sight. The rain eases, the wind calms, and the sun steadily begins to rise, casting its thin gray light across the surface of the sea. And I only stare, still in a state of shock, eyes bloodshot and hands trembling on my rifle. Leighton is all I can think. She's gone. I did see her again. Leighton, I mean, during my time in the rig. Several times, actually. The P and the accompanying beast appeared to us on 6 more nights. On one of those nights, we were visited by Rainbow's End, the other Forgotten Queen. But the other four were our regular, the Watchful Guardian. The man in blue was still there, the woman in pink also, but neither of them were the one to call over to us on those final 4 visits. It was Leighton. Always Leighton. Adorned in goggles that covered her eyes and a thin black mask that covered her face, she called over to Evie and I on the megaphone. She was still wearing her military camo, still equipped with a rifle, and all she did was beg us to join her, to allow them to dock and for us to board the ship, to evacuate the rig and to escape. Each time she tried, I was convinced that the rig was about to go down, that the beast was truly about to tear us all apart. She seemed completely oblivious of her previous visits, and seemingly the events surrounding her own choice to board the .P in the first place. I considered shooting her, you know. I looked through these sights of my rifle, wondered if a shot from that range would strike, and then decided against it. Maybe one day she'll find her way back. Maybe I'll get stationed on the rig again. I've requested it, but I'm awaiting the results of my psychological assessments. Time will tell, I guess. But all I can say for certain is that the thing is still standing. As of the time of writing, the beast is yet to finally tear it down. So make of that what you will, I guess.